Mic check 1 2 1 2. Can y'all hear me in the chat? If anybody's in the chat and can hear me, push one. Hey, what's going on, Richard Dixon? All right. Super Triz, what's going on, fam? Mega Montana, what's going on, fam? Yeah, I had some issues with the headset, so that's why I was late. The problem is my headset. I have a Bluetooth headset, and it kept dropping every time I would start the hangout, so I can't actually be heard. So I didn't, I couldn't start the hangout no matter what I did. So I had to disable the headset and kind of reinstall it. For whatever reason, this happens with Hangouts. It doesn't happen with anything else. It's just Hangouts itself. So sorry for the delay, but we are here. Open chat number 10. The title says it all: digital colonialism and the Manosphere Apartheid. I know you all have been privy to some of the events that's been going on the last few weeks, if not the last 48 hours, for that matter. What's going on, Complex?
Hey, what's going on, Mike?
I'm chilling, bro, chilling. We've seen a wave of. Let me preface it this way. I've been on YouTube since 2006, before the Alphabet Group even bought YouTube for $500 million. Okay, $500 million. I remember that vividly, and YouTube has grown tremendously since the inception of the Android device. Android actually drove a lot of YouTube subscriber base. So I remember YouTube when it was in. It's completely different today than what it was back then. And when it came to the conversations, you had an onslaught of people, very tech savvy people, might I add, or I should say tech savvy, but media savvy people who figured out YouTube very quickly. And so they were able to upload content and stuff like that back then. Back then, there was no live streaming. So what you see today is vastly different than what it was back then. Back then, you could only upload a video with 10 minutes and 59 seconds. And you used to be able to respond to other people's videos by attaching your video to that person's channel, so that so that the relevance of that video would correspond with that person's last production. They stopped doing that for whatever reason. Very, very weird. But I say all that to say this: that I've seen a lot of people come and go from throughout YouTube, and regardless of what people say about the Manosphere, um, because it's not at VidCon 2019, and there's no such thing as a black Manosphere. Let's recap on what the Manosphere actually is, right? Manosphere, Black Manosphere, in a nutshell, is a shared space, right, of men, right? So for thinking men, right? So if I go to a bar, and there's a section for drinking, and then there's a section for billiards, right? You kind of accept that the pool table area, the guys who are over there every single week, that's where those guys are. That's kind of their thing. They do their thing over there, and these other guys, they sit at the with the bartender, and they drink over there, and then the other guys sit at the karaoke. That's kind of what they do, right? It's kind of an unspoken sort of acceptance of congregation of men, right? If the Hell's Angel biker gang were monopolizing that pool table area, you kind of just accepted it for what it was, right? If I'm a white person. But when it comes to social media, people seem to not want to respect the safe spaces of black men, thinking black men. People are starting to call it, you need some kind of membership. You need all of these, a charter. You need this. You need that. You really don't need that. If somebody claims that they're Manosphere, Black Manosphere, and another guy claims to be Black Manosphere, it's kind of just accepted universally that that's what they do. No one ever goes to guys who are from. Let's use MGTOW for example. Anybody can claim MGTOW, but no one ever says, you can't you can't claim MGTOW because this and that, right? And I'm speaking in the white spaces. When they claim MGTOW and they kind of upload their videos, you kind of accept that that's a MGTOW video. But in the Black Manosphere, that's not really accepted. There's a lot of people who are coming through trying to change the vibe and the structure of the social space of Black men so that it satisfies their needs.
Mike, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm really not too clear on what's happened over the last 48 hours. What you're saying, are you speaking to something like specific, I'm guessing here?
A little bit more general, but some of the stuff I've heard, I'm not going to repeat it. Well, I'm not going to repeat too much of it because I don't want to give people any shine, right?
Yeah.
There are people who have come in and have basically overthrown the social order of the Manosphere. Now, you and I, we know each other from other platforms, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we saw some of the things. There were some things that we didn't like what we saw, so we decided to create the Black Brain Trust, right?
Yeah.
But what you have here is a new demographic of people who are coming in and trying to change the social order for what it is right now, and then claim that these men are toxic. Intellectual Black men are toxic.
Now, are these other men that are claiming this?
Excuse me?
Is this other men that are claiming this?
No. It's I think it might be well, not might be, but it's definitely the opposite sex. It's BWs, but probably some BBWs too. Probably some BBWs too. But to your point, but to your point, what has happened here is because they don't have the. You got a lot of noise coming from that background.
Okay.
What has happened here is because those people cannot enforce, their ideas against, other brothers in the space. What they have done is they've weaponized the masculinity of those select guys that they prefer to go against the talking points in of these other content creators and brothers in the Manosphere. So, say for example, you show up to a park, which is a public space, and somebody has, let's say, a German Shepherd, and you decide that you're going to go get a pit bull because you don't like that person who has a German Shepherd, and you take your pit bull, you take him off the leash, and you shake him, and you say, get him, girl, or get him, boy," and that pit bull becomes angry. And now that pit bull is off trying to either attack that German Shepherd or the owner of the German Shepherd. Because you lack the intellectual capacity and capability to actually challenge what that owner of that German Shepherd may have said, right? I'm just using German Shepherd as an example. And what has happened, you know, the last maybe 6 months, maybe to a year, is that people have come into the manosphere and they have come into the manosphere and have basically tried to overthrow the order of the manosphere by weaponizing the masculinity of these black men against other black men. And then in the same breath say that we're building the black community, or we need to rebuild the black community. But with who? Who are you talking about? And under which? Go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish your thought, and I have another question for you.
Yeah, but with who? Right? Who are these people? The constituents are going to be within this new black community. You know, you've seen. I mean, we've seen criminals come through on Hangouts. You know, all types of nefarious people, and these same people who, you know, who tore up their own communities want to come in here and try to reorganize the black, you know, the black manosphere and say these are the talking points that should be had, and you know, you better get in line or we're gonna get you up off of YouTube.
I mean, I think how did in a space called the Manosphere, how the hell did black men allow this? Like, I mean, I guess that's kind of the question I would have, right? Like, you know, if like let's use the scenario that you were talking about, like the pool hall place, right? Like there's a karaoke area over there, right? There's the bar area over here, the billiard tables are over here. And everybody kind of stays into what their interest is in this venue, right? But isn't there a motherfucker at the front door checking IDs and shit to the people who's coming in? Right? Is there anyone like so that somebody could come in and interrupt, you know, to prevent someone from coming in and interrupting what it is that goes on in this environment? Okay, usually you're getting checked at the door. Usually. Right? So my question is that why did the the men in the manosphere man up, right, and set some standards around the goddamn place and say, look, we check IDs.
Well, that's an interesting question. I never really thought about it from that perspective. But the only thing I can actually come to give you an answer on that is by saying that you know, vertical smiles, man. A lot of guys love the vertical smile, man. They they uh they they love it, man. They just love the vertical smile. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having certain people get into VIP, but what happens when these people get into VIP, you know, they're back there rearranging the furniture, which brings me to a point. Professor Griff brought this up a few years ago, man, when he was dealing with that other person. And he said that other person, you know, he had to part ways with that other person because, you know, they were trying to rearrange the furniture in their house, in his house, so to speak, and how he operates his platform. He said, nah, we're not doing it. So you have to cut ties with that person. And he said it's Taco Tuesday. Super Triz is a nut, man. So Professor Griff had saw the same thing on YouTube, man. So it's not just me or the Black Brain Trust just having this conversation. I think people are having this conversation because it needs to be had, right? There's certain people who are just coming in and they're trying to rearrange the talking points, you know, the social order. You know, it's crazy. I've seen in my time on YouTube, I've seen BWs, you know, with pale faces get together on campaigns to take down intellectual brothers' channels. You know, back then it was easy to take down, you know, a brother's channel because the algorithm was different, right? It only needed so many attempts or so many submissions to bring the channel down. And what happened was the life work of those brothers who put up content, everything was lost because you never really backed up anything. If your channel was suspended or was terminated, that was it. Nobody ever downloaded their videos to
Right, and saved
back
it.
them up. Yeah, nobody
Yeah.
did that. People just like kind of accepted, that they had to start from scratch. But what happens today is that we're seeing a repeat of this sort of colonialism in the manosphere. You're seeing this sort of apartheid in the manosphere where only certain people can come on certain panels and say the most rambunctious things and get away with it and not be challenged.
Well, I mean, okay, so if you have could one say that either the manosphere and, I mean, perhaps this is another one of those, sort of predictive measures that we've laid out that have probably come to more of a reality than maybe even we saw it, but maybe there is a sort of a shift in terms of the 3.0 sphere that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, right? Let's say in all of the venues where I would say like 3.0 based discussions are being had,
Mm-hmm.
there aren't any women in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it, right? Largely, if you're on our stuff, like people like King Sigma,
Yeah,
you
shout out to
know,
King. Shout out to King.
yeah, yeah, you
Shout out to
know,
Chris.
right, Super Triz,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of brothers who are having like, I would say more insightful, informative discussions.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice, hey, there might be women like in the chat, right in the chat box or whatever, but they're not putting in on the discussion. You know what I mean? So maybe, okay, maybe we look at this whole apart. Maybe let's look at it with wider eyes. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe there's an element of the old paradigm manosphere that's kind of being more swallowed into more like mainstream black YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and then the manosphere as perhaps it's manifesting now is
Mm-hmm.
manifesting in more of a 3.0 shell.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
No, I think I like where you're going with this. I'm just saying, reflecting on all of the things that you said and some of the things that I've said and some of my experiences on YouTube. Um, Black Avenger, right? So Black Avenger is this platform by one of the brothers in the Manosphere who took the time out of his day to actually create a platform, to as a safe haven for brothers, right? So it's kind of the next step for like the Manosphere itself. But if you go back in the day, there was a platform called GenerationX.net where when the flag wars originally happened back in 2008, 2009, that was created in the same vein that Black Avenger was created. Although Generation X had millions of bugs in it, it had so many bugs in the lines of code, it wasn't really that stable. And you can upload endless amounts of videos on there, 6 hours, 8 hour videos. Back then on YouTube, that was unheard of to upload a 6 hour video. That was completely unheard of. Um, so I think brothers have made these attempts before to create these sort of safe spaces for thinking black men, for intellectualism and so on and so forth, some more innovative ideas. But every single time it's been sabotaged, right? Through colonialism. So what I'm seeing right now is that the manosphere as we know it has been colonized. It has been completely digitally colonized. We have colonizers in the manosphere, and they are leveraging very blue pill sort of black men, black males, to do all of their to be their hired guns and go out and attack other black men's talking points. I heard the brother not Super Triz, the Truth as I Know It. Shout out to Truth. I heard him on a different hangout, being interviewed, and people were attacking him because he was married to a non-black woman. And I said, "What business is that of yours?" But yet there are women, BWs in the manosphere, who were married and had children with non-black men, and no one seems to question that. No one questions it.
The irony.
Yeah, no one questions it. No one questions the person. They don't question the content creator. These people can sit up there and say the most ridiculous things out of their own mouths, and they get away with it. So what I'm saying is, the manosphere has been colonized for all intents and purposes, man. And if you, and I've seen different brothers get their channels taken down, and I say to myself, how is it that this brother isn't afforded the First Amendment, but yet this other person is afforded the First Amendment? Why does the amendments change when it comes to intellectual black men or thinking black men?
Well, because what ends up happening is that the discussions that are had by thinking men typically lead to some sort of action, right? If a problem is being discussed and amongst a group of intelligent individuals, they suss out a plan of action to solve the problem. You know, typically what's going to happen is they're going to attempt to solve the problem. And in our culture, I'm sorry, you guys, man. You know, I just know what it is with these allergies and shit.
Yeah.
In our culture, though, we live off of problems, right? We don't really live off of success. We live off of problems. You know, so there's no interest in problems being solved if that is what your culture is largely based off of. I mean, you even hear it. You hear it in a lot of discussions that are even had amongst men. You know, like I have a bit of a reputation, apparently, good or bad, doesn't really matter. But I have a bit of a reputation, like, for pushing back on a narrative that basically throws the reasons why something can't be done in my face. And me, and that, as a natural solution oriented person, I just say, look, problems are there to be solved. Right? Simple as that. Like, miss me with all that bullshit. You know, so what happens is that if that's what you have, if you have a miss me with that bullshit mentality or mindset, then what happens is that it's hard for you to be removed from your square. And then if you get a collective of dudes who are like that, then it's harder to pierce that veil, right? When it's like a bunch of dudes who are sharp-minded, right, and are on point with their analysis of things locally and globally. You know, how do you sell dysfunction to a person or a group of individuals who are oriented towards being functional and productive? That runs counter to our narrative, right? You see, so I anticipate pushback. I anticipate the shit. I just think that, the ease of which this manosphere and kind of, just really digging into what we're talking about here, maybe I'm starting to kind of reassess, like, my thoughts on this. Because firstly, I'm saying, well, who was checking IDs out the door? But then on second thought, I'm kind of like, well, maybe there just is maybe there's just kind of like a leap in the evolution of things that we're currently looking at, right? You know, when usually when there's a shakeup or something, like, it's gonna be messy. I mean, shit, I posted a video of the damn earthquake, the earthquakes that were here, and they had water sloshing out of the pool and all that kind of stuff, right? So when chaos ensues, things happen. But I think we're kind of like analyzing, like, the rearrangement of things in real time.
Oh yeah, because what's happening here is certain black men can talk and certain other black men can't talk. silencing voices, shadow banning and things like that are happening. Guys dropping books and their books being slandered and so on and so forth. So it, it's crazy to it's crazy because you put a if you're a content creator, you're putting in a lot of work and whatnot, and you got I saw I follow C Boogie. We follow C Boogie. Shout out to C Boogie Productions. He went to Atlanta and came back, and cats was throwing salt. Right? What's driving this sort of this sort of aggression against black men, thinking
Man,
black men who want
yeah.
self improvement.
Man, look, I'll tell you exactly what that is. That's C Boogie practicing what he preaches,
Right.
right? And that's him literally like showing improving,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, okay, once you see, this is why I largely don't tolerate like stupid ass arguments, especially when I know that there's been things I have done in real life or that I do in real life, right? That back up what I say. You see, so once you display the fact or you display like that you are proficient in what you speak about or you practice what you preach, then the chance of hate become louder and more pronounced,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's easier to kind of like it's easier to if you're just like on YouTube, right, and you're just making the content and you're just kind of saying the right things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people could take away they take away a little bit of inspiration in that. They don't because they don't really see you doing it, but it just sounds good. So they're like, yeah, I'm down with that message. But then when they see you actualizing it,
Mm-hmm.
then what happens is that it kind of puts the mirror in their face because it says, okay, look, you like the message,
Mm-hmm.
but let me show you that I'm not just bullshit, dude. Like I'm actually about what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, are you ready to embody that part of the message? And a lot of dudes aren't. A lot of dudes talk a lot of shit on YouTube, right? But they don't. There's no proof of what they do. See,
Well,
so there's also what we're starting to see is dudes who are now coming into this, like brothers like the brilliant Dr. Phoenix. Okay, the dude lives what he talks about,
mm-hmm.
and that's what you can't take that shit away from somebody.
But what I'm trying to figure out is, I actually don't need to figure it out. Like I said before, the manosphere has been colonized. Somebody has there are colonizers within the manosphere.
Now, when you say colonizer, dude, like, what do you mean by that? Like
So
specifically?
there is somebody who has immense social power, either through their voice or through their subscribers or just their message, and they're leveraging that to either change the narrative or to galvanize a base for nefarious reasons, right? So unfair reasons, right? So to try to create a divide against certain sections of what we consider to be the black manosphere. And it wasn't like that before, but now you're starting to see it really, really start to show its face. People aligning themselves with nefarious individuals and building this sort of wall against intellectualism, where these guys can say just anything and say, well, that's the empirical evidence, and I say that's that's not acceptable, man. And then you can't get on the panel and actually debate them, or you can't see them in person either. And so what happens here is they are able to um, to galvanize a base and control the narrative that is false. It's a false narrative. Think about America, right? Most people who go to American public schools don't know that the Native American, the indigenous populations past, because that's been wiped out, right? It's been wiped out from history books. Book burning is basically what's going on. What we see in the manosphere is digital book burning. Unless you do your research, you may not know the origins of the North American continent and the indigenous population. You would never know about that.
Right.
And what's happening in the manosphere, what I'm seeing here is there's a lot of book burning going on in the manosphere. That comes from colonialism. And there's this sort of apartheid that is happening where, um, you know, certain people are creating narratives that says that they have the right to a First Amendment, but not you, which is crazy. And people are just sitting back and allowing this type of stuff to happen. And I can't accept that. I can't accept that at all. That's not something that I can accept, man. Because what's going to happen is it's going to eventually come to the Black Brain Trust. I mean, we've had this discussion before. A couple months ago, people were telling us that space doesn't exist, and that talking about space and space exploration is BS.
But Mike, okay, and see, but look, I got to tell you, man. You know, I think it was probably the first open hangout, open chat that we did, and I want to say, man, we were actually, it was a specific person. Maybe this is one of the people that we're talking about, and we had to address this person. And then you notice it never came back to us, right? You see, so I'm more confident just in the fact that because of what it is that we and brothers like us stand on, why we're even here, and what it is that we talk about. Look, man, in the face of intellectualism, man, I'm just going to dismiss you altogether.
Well, let's
right.
use.
Like if you come at the Brain Trust with that, like that's not. Or are you coming at us to discuss topics of the day relating to fourth industrialization? No. Okay. Well, no. Then I'm not going to entertain your discussion. That's for a different time, a different venue. Doesn't go on here. Won't entertain it. And this is what I mean. Like, who's checking the front door?
I think guys are checking the front door, but they're allowing these fake IDs to come up in there.
Okay, well, we need to figure that part out then.
C Boogie just joined the panel. What's going on, fam?
C Boogie, what's good?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Yo, loving that avatar, fam, and loving that yellow.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
What's on your mind, fam?
Oh man, excuse me, man. Just listening in, you know, and like one of the things guys got to realize, man. But then it's online sectors. As you probably realize, you're dealing with a lot of mentally ill people, man. I've met up with some of my. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I've met up with some of my subscribers. Me going from state to state, and a lot of people are not who they say they are. And we have a bigger issue out here that it's kind of picking up some steam, but I've been tackling this issue for the better part of the year. I'm like, no, I can't focus on this women. I got to deal with these men. There was a bigger problem out here to me because I'm like, okay, we can hold these females accountable, but after I put some things under some scrutiny, I come to find out it was a lot of guys broke, a lot of guys living in people's basements. It was a lot of guys with no cars. It was a lot of guys with no jobs. It was a lot of guys 100 pounds overweight. It was a lot of guys with every reason, for them not to have a good experience with women. And to me, that's only the obvious. So, my thing was that, all year I've been trying to tackle this one, I'm not gonna say just one, but a few issues that was pretty important. If us as men was going to be rolling right out here, man. You know what I'm saying? I feel like our closet got to be clean before we can, I guess hold any kind of women accountable. So for me, even if you just say the word self-improvement, to me, that's just a part of my life. It's something that's nothing I got to talk about because I'm always looking to evolve and add more to my game and things like that. So, that's something that doesn't cross my mind twice.
Mm-hmm.
But for some people, it's a threat to their message. So let's just say you got somebody like, you know, I don't know, Obsidian and myself. Our messages are so different, but if more guys come across the street to get self improvement, the less they'll need his message, and that's the less money in his pocket. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
that's one of the reasons a lot of guys around here are acting kind of bizarre lately
Mm-hmm.
because their money is in question. That's the biggest reason. Their money is in question because I'm starting to see steam being picked up on just self improvement. Even if it's just guys talking about it, that's where I should start. Just talk about it. I think if you talk about it enough, eventually you'll start to do anything to change your situation. To me, so I'm starting to see a little bit of steam, just even on that. And the second part of why guys are acting kind of crazy is, now it's co-ed around here. It's co-ed.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you bring women in, then you're going to see bizarre behavior from men. That's just how it always going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so man, you just gonna have a bunch of men that just want the attention of women, even if they never seen them before or whatever the case may
Mm-hmm.
be. So you got that going on, man. So to me, man, it's not one like silver bullet, man. You got a lot of different
A lot of moving parts.
yeah, it's a lot of different pathologies around here, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different cultures. So, to me, there is going to be a level of like miscommunication from time to time. Now, a lot of this shit, I'm not, I don't like what I'm seeing, as of this week with doxing and stuff like that.
That's what I'm
Um,
talking about, man.
I think that got to stop because I think stuff like that can actually spill over into the streets, and I really don't want to see that. But it's kind of crazy shit coming from
Yeah, I
this
mean,
man.
we saw, Tommy Sotomayor get punched in the eye at the event. People getting japped up. I mean, slapped up out here. yo,
Hey, hey, hey.
it's real, man.
Yeah, yeah.
It's real. It's real. Colonialism is real, and we're seeing it in the manosphere happen in real time. Channels being colonized. The social space is being colonized. Rules are being rewritten right in the face of the content creators, where they're creating this sort of apartheid, man. Um, you have to drink at this water fountain. You can't drink at this one where the cool guys are, or alleged cool guys. You know, um,
Well, in life, man, like the way I see it, and I hate to oversimplify it, man, but the way I see this shit, man, is, in life you got winners and losers, right? Bottom line. And to me,
hmm
the winners are the people that attempted to do something to change their situation.
hmm
You're not always gonna look, man, you might not have $1 million, but shit, you spent your whole life striving to get there. You might die with a couple 100,000. To me, that's a winner because you tried. And you got people that never tried.
hmm
And at the root of all of this, to me, right now, is fear. I was talking about this last night. It's a lot of fear with a lot of men. A lot of guys are scared to get out here and take risk. A lot of guys are scared to get out here and get out of that comfort zone. It's kind of like, it's funny with the picture with the yellow blazer.
hmm
I didn't initially like the yellow blazer. I went with brown because that was safe, but I had to get out of my comfort zone. So, it's a lot of guys with fear, and that goes over to the content creators too. It's a lot of guys that are scared of August 1st when Hangouts stop. It's a lot of guys with, they got to pay their bills with this kind of money, man. It's a lot of fear going on right now, and this is why you see bizarre behavior. A lot of guys don't want to go back to, the corner store and sweep up hair off the floor, whatever they was doing before this shit, man. Seriously, it's fear, man. And I see it. I feel the energy around here, man. And I'm sitting back in my office with my feet kicked up, like, okay, you know, guys should have, got on this program months ago. And that's something that me and Kevin strive to do with the Atlanta thing. It was something so small, but it was like, okay, let's get up off the hangouts
Mm-hmm.
and bring this into real life. So maybe we can inspire other guys to do the same thing. But of course, that was more of a negative effect than positive because guys just hate it because come to find out, these guys don't even have vehicles, but they complaining
And
about
you're
women.
actually you're actually doing practicing what you preach.
Some guys
So
don't got licenses, man. You know, they still Ubering it around, still waiting for the bus.
I
so
mean,
you
that's
got winners
how
and losers, bro.
and that's like that's how just you being on your shit can expose other people really without you even being confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, like this is just kind of what you have to deal with. You know, so I would say, shit, throw the yellow blazer on, be unapologetic about it. You know,
Well, that's another thing too, man, is because I think some people try to expect. Okay, so for me, I don't, um, what word am I looking for, man? I don't. I want everybody to be them because I know for a fact that as Black people, we are spread out through so many different classes. Whether it be education, financial, all different backgrounds. And I just appreciate everybody for being themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if nothing else, it got to be one or two things we can all come together and talk about. But I don't want anybody to be nothing that they not. But some guys, like Complex said, man, you just being you. Hell, if you 6'3", guys don't want you to be 6'3" because they 5'5".
Mm-hmm.
If you have a job making 100 grand a year, guys don't like that because they want you to make 20 grand a year because they lost at something. And instead of getting better or even asking somebody how they get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
guys automatically go to hating, man. And that's something that I want to stop, man. I'm like, dog, it's so much knowledge around here. There's so many guys that are out here winning that you can link up with anybody on any given day and figure out how to do something to better your situation. But nobody's doing that, man. I'm not gonna say nobody, but a lot of people not doing that. They're not taking advantage of this space right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And to me, this shit has just become a place where a lot of guys congregate to complain, and I'm out on that tip. You
Yeah, it turns into an asylum.
well, and it's there's a bit of a there's a bit of like a social club aspect to it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and that can reflect itself in a number of ways. I would say in one regard, let's take the brain trust for example.
Mm-hmm.
So the type of the social club type of environment you would say that I would say that's been cultivated here is that of like an intellectual co-op or a think tank, and that's what we
Mm-hmm.
fashion ourselves to be. So there's that. Then you have like the other end of the spectrum. You have like essentially high school cliques that have gone online,
Mm-hmm.
right? See, so then there's also the nature of these various social circles or social clusters that are formed on things like YouTube, and you know what it is by the discussions that are had by these circles.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's why I'm like, well, let's really look at this with wider eyes here, man. I think there's just like a shift in kind of where people are orienting in all of this. I think Boogie brought up a really good point about the monetization aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
See, because you'll notice the brain trust. We don't ask for donations. We
We
don't
didn't.
we
We,
don't we
we
don't do
haven't.
super chats.
Yeah, we haven't enabled the
We're not
monetization.
monetized.
Yeah, because so when you play the live stream, you get the live stream. You don't get a commercial in between. So.
Right. So that right there will give you some insight as to what our intentions were.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if anyone ever wants to question the brain trust, wants to question what our motives, our intentions are,
Mm-hmm.
well, just look at the fact that we have not monetized this platform, and that should give you some indicator as to what our MO is. Others, okay, I think a lot of dudes are motivated by money. You got a lot of dudes that shame you into donations, you know, try to bully you into Patreon donations and shit like that. And that's because of what, C Boogie said. I mean, hey man, they eat off of this, and they may have to go back to, you know, doing that daily grizzly.
Well, because they see super chats and stuff like that as a form of reparations. If they're not gonna get it from the U.S. government, they're gonna get it from one of these cats out here. So
Yeah. Like the money is a big factor, man. With some people that are kind of making decent money at this thing, and like I say, man, you can sit up in a hangout, with your camera off in your underwear early in the morning and do a hangout. It's for some people that's better than banging that clock, man.
mm-hmm.
So and especially for just talking about your nonsense. So I'm telling you, man, that shit brought a lot of bizarre behavior from cats, man, and but this shit, man, is to me is um as far as the clicks. That has been a problem. But I think that came along with the hangouts because prior to that, when guys was just putting out content and just
Mm-hmm.
leaving it, check your comment section every few hours, you didn't really have these kind of problems, you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
as far as hangouts or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how the cliques got formed. So I think that'll get fixed, once hangouts are gone as well.
Yeah, we got low cast super kids on the panel. What's going on, brothers?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Hey, C Boogie, how you doing, bro? I watched some of your content.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, man. Just to add to it, Super Trez, how you doing tonight too? Ulysses, long time no talk, but how you doing, brother? Um, I want to just say this here, man. Is that I think everybody should just take a seat back and learn from the mistakes. Now, I personally know that I can't work with everybody. My personality is going to clash with some other personalities. So I keep my distance from
Mm-hmm.
certain people because of that reason. You know, but I will say this to black men, particularly, is that one, the manosphere, as far as I'm concerned, isn't dead. It just needs to be revamped. You know, I think one of the biggest problems was is that it didn't, in my opinion, it just didn't stand for anything specifically. Now I know everybody will say, well, it stood for this, but I'm like, I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't Google Black Manosphere and find anything specifically. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I think that was one of the biggest problems. I think what happened was that you did end up with a lot of the clicks, and you end up with the back, the side conversations, and I think a lot of that stuff kind of brought it to the point where it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would encourage brothers to understand is that if you're going to do YouTube, make content
Mm-hmm.
and collaborate with other people who are serious about making content. If you're a graphic designer, help somebody do graphics. So listen, just basically put yourself up. Promote yourself. I don't have a problem with brothers making money, but you know, certain people, I'm gonna be real with you, everybody talks about. I can't watch them past like 30 minutes sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just what I got to say for this at this moment.
Well, to your point about you couldn't, Google search Manosphere, right?
No,
It's
Black
kind of
Manosphere
yeah,
specifically. Excuse me.
yeah, Black Manosphere. It's kind of one of those things that you kind of accepted. If a cat was dropping, say for example, if Thug Titian was dropping some fire,
Hmm.
you there was a level of respect for the content. No one really went out of their way to try to take him down. It was never brothers really thinking on that level. So what happens there is you get several other brothers who add on to the conversation, and now you have a social space in the male congregation, right? That's basically what the manosphere is. So
Okay.
there was never really a necessity to create some form of charter or some kind of mission statement or some kind of Wikipedia. You didn't really need to do that. You kind of just accepted that you came into that space, and if you interacted with those type of brothers, um, you had to bring your A game. But what happened to in recent time is that people who cannot formulate their own ideas to advance the conversation decided that they were going to take the masculinity of other black men and weaponize it against the innovators and the free thinkers and the intellectuals, and those guys, some of them are still hanging around. I know some of them don't even post content, but they just come around and they just harass brothers, man. They just, and they always do it on behalf of a vertical smile. I got a big problem with that, man. Taco Tuesdays, man. It's what it is today, but that's what these guys are on. And I'll be honest with you, man. I'm from Boston. We don't really play those games like that. If you say something on social media, cats is pulling up on you. That's just what it is. So you got to be able to back up what you say. But with some of these other guys, man, they sitting in their loft style apartment, fumigating, and then trying to talk about, they're the secretary generals of the Manosphere. I got a big problem with that. Man.
I think respect to everybody on the panel, but I think a big problem is that we have quote unquote gatekeepers that have emerged within the Manosphere based solely on their availability to curate and produce content. A lot of us here, especially on the Black Brain Trust, are really putting in the work. So a lot of us can't be on YouTube 10 hours a day on a daily basis. We have personal lives that we have to attend to and business affairs that must be managed. So the individuals who have that type of time, have that availability to position themselves as gatekeepers, curate content, and galvanize other people who kind of, who they resonate with or resonate with them, based just solely on just presence alone. Like, if you hang around, if somebody is exposed to you long enough, they tend to kind of like you. So you have people who not necessarily make great content or who are very intellectual or thought-provoking, but just their mere presence being around so long, people have just kind of become accustomed to them and rally behind them to a certain extent. And some people are able to galvanize people rather quickly because even though they haven't been on YouTube very long, they've spent an exorbitant amount of time on YouTube in comparison to some people who've been around even longer because they just put more hours a day into YouTube and neglecting other aspects of their lives. And I believe now, even though there's a lot of chaos going on within the Black Manosphere, I think some people are actually being exposed to a certain extent because now receipts are being produced and people, for instance, are having their interior domiciles fumigated. People who don't necessarily live the lifestyle that they claim to live. See, what's going on with you?
Yes, sir, man.
They have arthropod infestations necessitating the interventions of licensed Terminator professionals. So
yeah.
This is what's going on YouTube, and this is, I think this is part of the problem. See, Boogie, I think they had with your rendezvous with Kevin Samuels in Atlanta because that sets a precedent, and that yes, this is YouTube, but actual live excursions are actually possible, and so now people have to get on camera and actually show the work, like what you did going to Atlanta, right? Number one, leaving your area. A lot of people don't do that, right? Paying for a plane ticket, right? Going to that establishment with Kevin Samuels, actually purchasing merchandise. People don't have that disposable income like they claim to have. So you set a precedence, and now people are now accountable for the words they say. It's no longer good enough to just be on YouTube and say, this is what you should do. And, claim to be professionals and claim to be experts in the realm of dating. And they've only been with 20 women their whole life. It's just a lot of bogus stuff going on right now. And now people have showed that, hey, now you can actually turn that camera on. Now you can actually leave your area and see if what you say actually translates in real life.
And it also validated what Kevin Samuels does too. So I also want to just kind of recognize him in this discussion as well, because what he does, he's subjected to a lot attacks, right? Just sort of like on his own, his personal choices, if you will. But your image and how you present yourself is largely a reflection of what you think and feel about yourself. So I think for somebody to go about assessing your situation and saying, okay, well, look, these are going to be the key things that you could do to bring out, the part of you that you're trying to express wholly and fully, and for him to link with C Boogie and to like document it all, because C Boogie embodies that very message as well. So this was all a confirmation for both of them, right? Because I noticed when that video came out, next thing you know, everybody's talking about whether Kevin Samuels is gay or not, and it's just like, whoa, dude, like, no,
Oh,
he's just real. He's real about what he does. That's really what it is. Like, you don't have to call his sexuality into question.
no, and
No,
the thing is, they got enough time to show pictures of themselves in these suits, 2 for 1 at K&G. You know what I'm saying? They at K&G with their super chat money, their Streamlabs money at K&G, getting these 2 for 1 deals and saying, how do I look in my suit?
Yeah.
Thing
With
is,
this, like this thing, man. This like the way I look at it too. This day had to come. I've been calling for quality control all year. Um, and nobody else was going to do it but the men. And I'm gonna tell you, man, because the first guy over the hill take the arrows, I took a lot of arrows, man, calling stuff out, man. And I was, I'm kind of glad to have some guys coming up behind me, man, to take some of these rounds. But yo, man, I took a lot of bullets out here, man, calling dudes out, man, on their hypocrisy, their contradictory statements, them not being who they say they are.
mm-hmm.
Um, Guys being functional on camera. I've met guys, they were highly dysfunctional off of camera. And I was like, hold on, man. I gotta um, you know, uh I gotta take my support back for a while from some of this stuff, man. And if it never get cleaned up, then I'm pretty much a solo act, because I don't stand next to hypocrisy, man. I never did it. I won't do it. Because I just got my values at the end of the day, man. And just me as a human being in general, man. So I was like, nah, man. If y'all want carte blanche to call these women out, which I'm like, do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you ain't rolling right, and if you lying about X, Y, and Z about your life, and you pretty much beating these women down, and your shit ain't tight, oh man, I can't stand next to that, man,
Yeah,
and I
you
will
can't you
never
can't
do it.
co-sign that. Can't co-sign it.
I'll never do it. So we got to look at, man. I've met quite a few guys, man, in real life, and I'm not trying to beat nobody down, but the reality is, man, as black men, these guys needed help in other areas, not just talk. I'm like, dude, these women are the least of your issues right now. I don't even know why you're talking about women. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, seriously. I mean, why?
right.
I'm serious, man. You can't blame the succubus, man. Half your lid missing, you blame the succubus. Come on, man.
Hold on.
It's crazy.
Oh, see,
Oh
Boog,
man.
you're absolutely right. One of the things I say about the brain trust right here, and brothers who are on the brain trust, who are routine cats here on the regular. You don't see a whole lot of talk about women per se, because it really is about developing ourselves and developing our minds, developing things that I think pertain to black men. Where are the jobs? How are we going to get black men working? What are we going to talk about as far as what are the careers that black men could really get into? What can we really focus on to really get ourselves right? Because I know some brothers. I know a brother right now. He was just on his grind on the job, just on his grind, kicking it, going hard, doing his thing, and a pretty fine babe rolled up on him. And she rolled up on him pretty hard, and she's still kind of chasing this dude. And he curving her a little bit, but at the same time, she's chasing him because he is on his shit. He's doing some engineering stuff. He's on his game. He's on his business, and this woman is chasing him, and she's fine. This ain't no ugly bitch. This is a very nice looking woman. Very nice looking. Very nice looking. Very nice looking. A lot of dudes would be like, oh shit.
I mean, I think that's
You know, but he's on his grind and he's
yeah.
pushing. He's not even looking for her. But see, he's not even looking for this person. But yet here she is. Here she is, all up in the DMs, all up in this grill, looking real teethy. And he's not pushing it. It's just this is where she looks at how he's running his life, and that's how a lot of this happens. That's how he sees it with his daughter and his kids, and I mean, you know, he on his grind, female all over him. I mean, all over. Like
and that's really the reality. Like,
I mean,
I was just going to
this
say
is
that.
what's
I think
going
that's just
on
really
out
the
here.
reality of it.
Yeah, this is what's going on.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right,
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, and I think that's just the reality, kind of. Yeah, like kind of jumping on that same point, because the reality is that women are just one piece of, I guess, a brother who's grinding life, right? Like that's not the entirety of somebody who's really on their purpose and somebody that's solid. Like yeah, women are important, but I think the fact that, you know, we don't focus so heavily on the women aspect, it leaves room for us to grow in other areas. So that's just my little two cents there.
Right, and that's what we do on this platform, right? I mean, for those of you who are new to the channel and listening, we do space and technology on Mondays, and then Tuesdays is usually Black cultural intelligence, and then Wednesdays geopolitics, Thursdays is Black crypto talk, and then Fridays is economics, and then Saturdays is tech talk, and then Sundays it's Black cannabis talk with business, wealth, and power. So you rarely ever hear us bash women and make up all these complaints. We don't. That's not a part of our genre. Like we don't really get down like that. And I think, go ahead, brother.
No, I was gonna say, because it's just fruitless a lot of times, right? I mean, I'm not, bashing anybody what they speak about as it concerns women, but I mean, how much, like, what's the return on investment? What's the ROI on, talking about women all day? What are you really gonna be progressing? How are you gonna be progressing towards your goals by talking about women? Just get you a solid one, somebody who can deal with you and you can deal with her, and you guys just move forward in a positive direction, and you focus on the many other, millions and myriads and surplus of other subjects within life, because women is just not that's just not the number one thing. So,
Right.
well, me and Complex Design, we were on the stream yesterday on my channel, and we had an extensive conversation. And one of the subjects we touched on was the fact that there was little ROI on these cyclic discussions about women, because at the end of the day, the solution is simple. Number one, you're not going to shame women into engaging in certain behaviors just by consistently talking about it. What men have to do is galvanize themselves and actually invoke change within the environment, and look at some of the factors that allow this latitude for women to have these certain behaviors. And once men start doing that, then they'll realize, like, wait a minute, there's a certain component that I have to upgrade within my life, such as I need to start looking at, what is my actual income? What is my socioeconomic status? Like, I can't really invoke change because I'm not relevant right now. You're not relevant working at Home Depot. I'm just being honest. So a lot of these guys,
you're hitting that right in the head. You're hitting that right in the head.
A lot of these guys are not. They're non-factors. So no, you can't change the environment. So no, the behavior of the women are not going to change. But see, guys like us realize that this is the reason why we're not consistently talking about the nature of women. And a lot of these guys are talking about the nature of women. You dated 10 women. What do you know about the nature of women? I mean, let's be honest. You don't have enough data to formulate actual opinions about it. What you're doing is you're regurgitating something that you heard somebody else say on the internet. And I can tell when somebody just regurgitating something. They haven't lived that life. Why are you talking about it? But again, that's to show your work. This is the reason why they don't want to do what C Boogie did.
I see it this way.
I just want to say one quick thing, man. First of all, you have to put a lot of investment into yourself. You will find over time, like I've seen over the years, you put most of your time and money into women, they are notoriously bad investments. They are bad investments. In fact, if I see a guy, if I see a guy putting a lot of money into a chick and running behind these women, I'm going to use a technical trading term. I'm going to start shorting his ass. I'm going to short him because I know at the end of the day he's going to lose. So I'm shorting him. I'm betting on him to lose. They are notoriously bad investments. But I tell you, the best investment you can invest in that's yourself. You invest in that, then you'll see a lot of return coming from that. And sometimes you may get a good woman out of it. That might be the case, but that shouldn't be the only thing you should let. You might get that, because you have to be real sharp to find out, what kind of good women out here and are not. But on the whole, what I have seen over the years is you invest in yourself. That's the best investment that you really can make. That is the best investment. You invest in women, you are going to lose more times than not. You're going to lose. That's just how that goes.
I think the best way of looking at it, just look at it this way: women are just liabilities. But I don't have a problem with women. For me personally, I'm more antisocial, and for the most part, it's not that it's more by choice. I'm more like the type of person I don't mind being by myself. I don't see the point of talking bad about women because I don't have a problem getting a woman. But on the other hand, I'm quite comfortable being exactly who I am. Now, anybody want to speak to that?
Well, I don't know if I can speak to that, but what I will say is that I think the reason why you don't see us having those sort of panels is because we're already winning. We don't accept super chat and all these other monetization features because we're already winning. We don't really need that sort of discussion in order to carry the channel. Our channel, the content on the channel really carries itself. So
right.
for us, man, that's like not a conversation that we need to really be having. In the conversations that I've had offline, with other guys who are involved in some of the stuff that we talk about, has really elevated the conversations that we've been having. Right, we went from just talking about technology to talking about space and technology. We went from talking about space and technology to actually, looking at the startup sector. Is this a viable market? Is this something that we can actually get ourselves into? So our minds are really not in that space, that headspace.
Right.
When I was doing undergrad, man, I've talked about this many times before, but I was working 9 to 5 jobs. I was doing my classes at night from 6 to 10, so I only had an hour to transition to get to my next class, or to get to class, and then, from 10 o'clock, to the next morning, I'm back at it again, man. And on the weekends, I was in the library. I didn't have enough time to be chasing vertical smiles, man, chasing tacos. I didn't have that kind of time. So, I was on my Grizzly every single, semester and every single day, man, in order to get to where I'm at right now. So a lot of these guys, I'm calling the red flag, man, or pulling the red card on some of these cats, man, because there's no way that you can be in school for medicine and be doing all these live streams and stuff like that, man. There's no way you can be.
I question that too.
There's no way you can be, that talented in what you say you are and have time to do live streams and stuff like that, man. Even tonight, man, I got off of work, man. I went to go work out and then did the live stream. So my day has already been eaten up, and then I'm here doing the live stream with you cats, right? Or I should say, the Black Brain Trust is doing that, man. Ulysses has a daughter, man. He has to attend to his
I'm
daughter.
at cheerleading practice right now.
Exactly. Can those other cats say the same thing on the mother panels?
Well, see,
No?
that's the thing, because I have to work full time and go to school full time.
Mm-hmm.
And so and that's what separates us, is because, see, we're able to maximize productivity.
Mm-hmm.
See, I work full time, went to school full time, and I
Mm-hmm.
was still going to the gym at least 5 days a week while I was in school. Now that I'm out of school, I go to the gym 6 days a week, sometimes 7. But
Mm-hmm.
see, people are not that productive. They can't walk and chew gum at the same time. This is the reason why they allow women to sidetrack them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're out pursuing women, see me, I can still pursue women to a certain extent, but I haven't allowed women to knock me off my pivot foot. And
Mm-hmm.
I still maintain control of my life. See, these other guys, they don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
They're so easily sidetracked by certain things. They can't maintain that certain level of productivity. That's the reason why they're where they're at.
But that takes a certain level of discipline. That takes a certain level of discipline. Me and my friends, we used to talk about when we were kind of young. We used to talk about when we were on our grind, kind of getting live. We used to talk about the pleasure freaks. He's a pleasure freak. The pleasure freaks were the guys that were running around constantly, chasing chicks and constantly, trying to get a nut. Like they were always sucking at the titty. We called it an infamita. It was like you were infamita. It was like you were like an infant, always sucking at the titty.
Right.
So it's like you got to be kind of on your grind and hitting things, and then this time if you want to deal with women and everything else like that, because a woman will try to take up a lot of time if she can. If she can sidetrack, if she will. Women are selfish in that regard. This is not a knock on women. It's just how it is. So at the end of the day, you have to be focused in your own game. That's why I always say it's not on them, it's on you. When you see these women telling you they ain't shit and everything else, like you ain't shit, these niggas ain't shit. You say, honey, you gotta look at yourself. Look at what you're doing. You running with these jacked up dudes, you get told out the frame and you complain about it. That's why I'm 1,000 miles away from you. I ain't got nothing to do with you. I'm doing what I have to do to get my game right. So they're not even a factor. So that's the key here, and that's what we have to really, do. Like this one brother who I know, who I've got great love for. He on his grind, babe coming at him, and this brother, this is not some 6-pack, 6'7", dunk a basketball off the top of somebody's head, super athletic guy. No, this is a everyday brother, intelligent, smart, works hard on his grind, and he got fine bitches chasing him. Now you have to look at what that's about. And he's not even looking for that. He's not asking for it. So you have to look at some of these things
One of the things
and say, be on your grind. That's more important than anything else. All right, okay, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say one of the things that caught my attention is that C Boogie said something in response to somebody. He was like, at 17, I was already in the military. I was already in Iraq. What was those guys doing at 17? You still go, turning down homely chicks at the, for a prom date. Like I just question the legitimacy of some of these cats, man. When they told their stories. But go ahead, C Boogie.
Well, I'll say, a lot of this stuff, man. Like even with the women and everything, I tend to look at the holistic aspect of somebody's life. Like a lot of times, man, that is a side effect of a bigger issue what guys have. They having issues with women, so got to kind of look at that. That's what I tend to tell people, man. A lot of people are not even equipped with proper social skills to even deal with people in general, let alone deal with women. I see it all too often. But anyway, moving on. Just in life, man. Look. There's a different energy from guys that take risk. You got guys that run toward the danger. You got guys that run away from danger. And so even with women recognize that energy between the two groups of men. You know what I'm saying? This energy transcends class. It transcends education. It's an energy. You know what I mean? Who gonna
Yeah.
go out here and lay down their life to get what they want out of this thing? To me, that's what men do. Don't necessarily matter to me, you know, your socioeconomic background, you know, but what matters is, you know, how hard you trying at something. You know what I'm saying? Some people, look, they
Right.
never gonna have it. They never gonna have that aspect of a personality. Some people got the raw substance. If they build on it, they can have it. Some guys just naturally, you know, kind of was born with it. You know, so look, that's just my thing, man. And those guys are the ones, you know, big risk come big reward, right? You know, that's just how
Right.
life go. Some guys they find a safe place in this thing and they kind of hide out and you know, and look, that's fine too, man. But you're never going to get the big reward, the big fish like that, man. So, you know, I've always
Right.
been a bit
That's
of a
true.
risk taker myself. So sometimes it came back and bit me in the ass. I'm like 50-50 on that shit, man. Sometimes, you know, I hit the lottery on it. So it all depends. But that's just how life go to me, man. I don't like to overcomplicate stuff. Life is complicated enough, man. This thing is really very simple. You know what I'm saying? Just how life is, man. You know, you get out here, you do the best you can, man. You grind this thing out. You know, women, you know, look, like that energy I told you about, man. They come with that package, man.
Can I ask y'all on this question? Because
Yeah, I
I'm
was gonna
sorry.
kind of say,
Yeah, go ahead, speak, bro. I'm
kind of
sorry.
even. Oh yeah, go ahead. Oh,
No, I ain't
Gabe,
said. Go ahead.
Gabe, your mic is breaking up.
I think he was saying that he's having like a little bit of a delay, I think,
okay. How do
on
I
his
sound now?
headset. Okay, wait, we can hear you now.
Yeah, am I coming through clearly now? Okay, cool. Now, kind of even
Yeah.
on that same point as it concerns. Am I still breaking up?
Yes.
Oh, crap. Hey, let me jump off and jump.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Locast.
I got a simple question. All right, now you guys have some guys who are experts in communicating with women or finessing women, so to speak. Um, it doesn't take a lot of effort. How many of y'all agree?
I mean, generally speaking, I agree.
Okay. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but the bottom line is, my point is, dude, let me just change the subject for a minute. The bottom line is, I've always had to question some people myself, but because I don't see it's something odd about it, something off about it. I kind of just find myself disinterested in tuning in. But it's funny to me how some people have sat down and analyzed all of these folk, man. I don't have the time or the energy, you know. And personally, I am like new to YouTube. I'm probably like, what, about a year and a half in now, and I still don't get how some people have the time to produce content day to day. That's all I got to say. I don't get it.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Okay, yeah. Kind of on that the point that C Boogie was saying before, as it concerns taking those big risks. And I think that's one thing that really definitely separates us from women is that being able to, I guess, project and look forward as it concerns particular decisions that we're going to make, and being able to take calculated risk and be able to count the costs as we're going forward. And I think that's one thing that really kind of even separates men from other men, is being able to really evaluate what our situation looks like, make a decision going in a particular direction, and counting the costs and really kind of weighing out everything and looking at, hey, is this going to put me at a more advantageous point in life, or is it putting me at a point where, man, maybe that risk is too high for me to take at this time? And it's just interesting because as I've been able to implement that more and more in my life, I mean, ain't been a woman to be able to tell me nothing of what I need to be doing or what I should be doing in my life. There's no competition. Like anybody that I've ever been in a relationship with, not that there ever was, or I'm doing anything to prove to a woman that I'm capable of being a man of substance, but Like will implement in my life. So there's a big
Yeah, you
element of
broke up to us.
competition in between men and women. Oh,
wow.
dang. Dang, man, I'm gonna have to just go ahead and jump off because I what part did I
I think
stop
there's a
for?
brute. Yeah, I think there's a brute force attack against your Wi-Fi connection. But
Yeah, yeah, man. I'm out of town actually. I'm at some hotel on a training site. So yeah, so I got blue Wi-Fi. So okay, somebody can jump on to something else. I'm gonna just go ahead and listen.
all right, go ahead, brother. Nicole.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, this is years ago. I was looking to, buy an apartment in South American Brazil, and I remember my ex was getting all in my way, trying to get me to do something else, and I had really
Hmm.
put my head forward and said I was going to do this, and I did, and we got into, a pretty big brouhaha over it. Um, it turned to be one of the better investments I made. Had I listened to that woman who was telling me not to do that, I wouldn't have made what I made on it. Um, I don't know what else to say except that at times you have to follow your own game. You can't let anyone else kind of steer you from doing the right things. And I think sometimes women can get in the way of of you doing certain kind of things that can be successful. So that's why I say you have to put a lot of emphasis on, I believe, on yourself. It's not about the women. It really is kind of more or less about you. And I think that's the key point. That's what I really, once again, that's what I really like about the Brain Trust. Brain Trust, talks about, great information, where you can get more. As we you have a little term here. We say butter laid. We can get a little more butter laid, and advance your own game. Yeah. We always say there's some good women out here, and some of these brothers are with some of them. So it's not about bashing any women here at this stage. Talking about how bad women are. I think we do see there are a lot of highly jacked up females out here that you really have to keep your eyes out on. But I think if you really focus more, towards getting your act together and you staying on point with your goals and set your goals right, these other outside forces become less of a factor. They just do, and that's what I love about this channel. That's why a lot of other stuff that's going on elsewhere, a lot of craziness, a lot of stuff going on. Let that happen. Let it go down. We're gonna play a more focused game here.
I kind of want to piggyback off what was said because he mentioned he was talking about basically almost alluding to the ROI and the investment potential of certain things. And again, we had this conversation yesterday, myself and Complex Design, and that a lot of what we as men do requires an abstract mind, abstract thought process, and abstract conceptualization that a lot of women aren't really capable of, not on a consistent basis, because we look at things not only in the present, but we look at things in the future tense. We look at things from a different someone else's perspective, from a different vantage point. Like, I may look at things from Nagon's perspective. I may look at things from Mike or Ulysses' perspective, not just mine. And a lot of women can't do that. They look at things because they have a self-serving type of mindset, and rightfully so. Uh, that's just the nature of women, and it's by design, so that way they can look out for their own best interests and the interests of their offspring, whereas we're looking out for the interests of everyone around us. As leaders and as protectors, that's what our job is, and so that's the reason why we're blessed with that ability to have that abstract thought, and that plays into taking risks, calculated risks, as we like to say, because you can look at potential outcomes, various potential outcomes, and different contingencies and different extenuating factors that may affect your level of failure or success. And I think that's the reason why a lot of times the conversations can be derailed
you know, in an attempt to be inclusive, even though it sounds good on paper. Sometimes it actually does more harm than good, because you have individuals who are not capable of abstract thought or not capable of rational thought, and it kind of derails the conversation, and you end up not delving into the solution aspect of the conversation. You kind of get into the back and forth argument aspect and emotional flare ups.
But oh, let me just jump in real quick. See, and that's what I'm wondering. Who's driving, that aspect of disruption? Somebody's driving this. It's not being driven on its own. At least to my opinion, it's not being driven on its own. I think somebody is driving this. I think there are provocateurs within the manosphere that want to see black men in a dysfunctional state where they can't communicate with each other, where they're talking about pulling up on each other. Meet me at this airport. Meet me at LaGuardia. I'll see you at the Greyhound station. This crazy stuff, man, that guys shouldn't be talking about.
I think I have to debunk you, Mike.
Oh yeah.
See, you're looking at things from a logical perspective, but it's not really logical. Mm-hmm. See, it's actually very, very simplistic and carnal. It's really and truly, a lot of men are including women in these conversations because this is the only venue in which they can have a consistent dialogue and captivate the attention of the opposite sex. Because in real life, women have no allure to them. There really isn't any compelling factor for women to engage in a conversation with a lot of these men on YouTube in real life. Mm-hmm. But because you're able to captivate an audience on YouTube, and now you can have a dialogue with women and actually change the disposition where previously, or actually in real life, women normally talk down to you. Now women see you as an actual superior, as an icon to be revered because you have a subscriber base. And so now that disposition differs, and there's an actual magnetism to those sorts of conversations for a lot of these men who don't normally have them in this particular manner. What do you think, Complex?
I was going to say, your subscriber base is so big.
Your subscriber base is quite engorged. No, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's a good point. I didn't think about it from that perspective, but I always look at everything as being, like you said, logical, man. And it's hard for me not to look at it that way. The way we run our our hangouts and the way we structured the channel, it's very rigid. There's a docket beneath in the description beneath the video. We have set times that we go live. We do a lot of research on content before we even just jump out the window and try to discuss it. So there's a way of thinking that that happens at least on this channel that on most other channels is not really happening. So our mindset, is radically different than some of these other content creators and characters. We're not. I won't mention any names because I don't want to start name dropping people, but there's certain people, man, that I look at them and I'm like, man, this dude is so finished.
Hey, Mike, there's a question in the chat. Let's see, because I think Richard he asked it earlier, and I think we may have gotten past this, but let me go back. He says, so where do brothers go after the colonialism and the apartheid?
Well, you don't go anywhere. You actually put up a fight.
I totally agree.
Yeah, you put up a fight against that, man. No, you never surrender to colonialism. When you do your research on American history and you look up, the slave trade and things like that, black men have always stood up to the oppressor. There's never been a time when black men just took it. We come from a long lineage of brothers who were fighting. You get the Haitian Revolution. You look at many of the slave uprisings on a lot of these plantations from the north to the south. It's hard for somebody to say, well, where do you go? No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm standing on the goddamn ground. That's what I'm going to do. By putting out more content.
Stand your ground. No question about it.
Yeah, you really do have to force the narrative, man. Like, and you got to be unapologetic about it and aggressive about it too. I mean, because, you know, it's always been my viewpoint that, you know, you could be aggressive. I can be just as aggressive about intellectualism as you could be aggressive about ignorance. And I guarantee you, I'll win out every time.
What's going on, Triple X?
What's going on, Mike? Hey, salute to the panel.
Yo,
Hi, everybody.
what's going on, G?
Loving that avatar, fam. Loving that avatar.
Oh, thanks, man. Had to switch it up, man. Put the mink away for a minute.
Oh yeah, it's getting hot out here. It's getting hot out here.
It's getting hot out here. Yeah, you know, yeah, I heard some of the conversation earlier. Yeah, to add to that, man, yeah, a lot of these guys just seem to all of a sudden be throwing their hat in the dating coaching ring, and I ain't quite sure why a lot of these guys will be having so much issues with women in general. I always found that kind of funny. I just always kind of sat back and kind of laughed at a lot of it for my entertainment, to be honest. But I ain't quite sure what issues they seem to be running into, but I'm not really running into them. So, you know, that's it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lil Cass.
So to answer your question, what I suspect really it is that it goes back to the first thing brothers were talking about. You got some brothers when you go to check them, and you find out their conditions, their situations. A lot of that stuff it dampers down on your social activity, your social life, and you have to keep in mind you have to build your social life. Your social skills are supposed to progress as you progress in life. And when you have a lot of people who are still at point A, that cripples their socials, their social skills as well. That happens.
Yeah.
And, what I also do suspect too that you do within that same group, even though let's say later on those brothers begin to their situations improve, there's still a setback in their social skills as well. Does that make sense to anyone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. I can definitely see that, man. A lot of Madden Kings, a lot of guys didn't progress much past high school. Let a lot of years go past, not really getting out there, experiencing life for as it is, man. I mean, especially you guys mentioned earlier, C Boogie being in across seas at 17, man. I mean, you know, you're gonna grow up fast with experiencing that type of things, man. You know, it's gonna mature you fast too, and that's needed for a man. Definitely. To add something else I wanted to add too, then I'm gonna pass the mic. But yeah, you know, hey, whatever moves being made, you know, the man should be first. You know, your dreams, your goals should be first and foremost. The chick for me is just an accessory. She can join up, but this ship is going out to the ocean, and you can get on if you want. If not, hey, you stay at the dock. That's all I got.
Gabe, can you hear us now?
Right.
I guess not.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your connection is better now.
All right. Cool. Yeah, man. Okay. For sure.
All right. So yeah, I just want to recap, man, because there's people who are just now joining the chat. Please hit the like button if you have not already done so. If you're not going to participate in the chat, hitting the like button is the least you can do. Just to recap, man, I've been watching a lot of the Manosphere YouTube, Black YouTube, whatever you want to call it, and been seeing things transpire the last maybe 48 to 72 hours, and I just find it interesting that some of the turn of events, man, people have created almost a cold war inside the Manosphere. You know, people taking sides, putting up walls overnight. You know, sort of a colonialism that's happening with certain characters talking about they're going to get guys up off of YouTube, the doxing and stuff like that. These are very egregious sort of maneuvers that's happening, or egregious acts that are happening, and very aggressive maneuvers. And I thought that it would be interesting to actually have a conversation about some of these activities that leads to sort of an apartheid state where intellectual
I
black
like
men
that.
are considered intellectual black men are considered to be toxic masculinity now. Mind blowing. And it's only black men that seem to go through this. It's not like I don't see that happening on other platforms anywhere else. There's this idea that in order to be a black man in anywhere in the West now is to be docile. You do what you're told. You accept the social order for what it is, and then you take the blame for the failures of a community that did not offer you anything and did not benefit you at all. I just find that to be very interesting.
Well, I don't know how to answer how to respond to your statement, but I will say this, and I know some people. This is only my opinion, and I'm so responsible for what I'm saying here, guys. I think it's a good thing, but I do believe that intellectual men need to see it for the opportunity where it is,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess and lay siege to it. Whatever real estate is out there, pick it up and walk with it, and just keep it simple. I mean, you see what's going on. You see exactly how the lines are drawn. You see the players. You know their mindsets. You know their educational levels. Make it work to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I can dig that. Yeah, it seems to be, for me, it seems to be devoid of any real leadership. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I know the big three, they were kind of anointed as like the front men of the Manosphere. And I mean, O'Shea has done a pretty good job, with the interviews and having some good discussions and stuff. But, with the other guys, man, I don't see the leadership and like trying to pull everything together and and really do something with the Manosphere. I mean, it's a lot of talent here. I mean, just look at this panel, and the Black Brain Trust in general. And like, I haven't heard much of any discussion over on any of their stations much about the Black Brain Trust, and that's crazy. So yeah, it's it needs to honestly, it probably needs to be taken over. So I can see where Lowcast is going with that, but I'll let somebody else jump in.
Well, I don't know if it needs to be. I don't know if it needs an established leadership, right? I think the content should speak for itself, rather than to have people just kind of occupy this sort of hierarchy just because they exist, right? I think your content should speak for itself. If your content is not about self improvement, if it's not about the advancement of black men, if it's not about the innovation of ingenuity in black male spaces, I don't think that I think that should be the criteria, to determine that form of leadership. I mean, because anybody can claim to be a leader with X amount of subscribers and super chats and so on and so forth. I'm not knocking anybody for getting money through YouTube. I'm not knocking them at all. I just think that we have to set the ground rules first. There needs to be some form of standards. We talked about this long time ago, but there has to be some kind of standards. And what's happening now is you have barbarians, on black YouTube just jumping around, and they cook people and they do this and they swing axes and battle axes and chains and whips and baseball bats, and it's like I'm not with all that, man.
Yeah.
We're not with all that, man. That's a little too much for me.
Well, I would say this: if someone decides they want to drop some standards,
Mhm.
and if they don't want to speak it for themselves, I'll speak for you. So if anybody has any ideas of any directions, because look, the way I see it, most of the problems that have happened out here, this is about money. and it's drawn a lot. Money is the motivation for most of the foolishness. What brought it to what you see? I mean, it's been said openly, you know, and you see how some of the characters begin to just perform for money. Now, not all of us really care for all that type of stuff. Some of us just genuinely just have something they want to express. But then there's others who want to provide you with a show. I don't have a problem if people learn how to marry the two together responsibly. But this is the reason why I think there should be a standard. Now, I may not be the best to articulate it as well as you guys. I had to look at some business, read something for Business for Dummies or something, so to speak the proper language for this. But I'm just saying is that it does require some type of organization to this at this point, because again, I want everybody to just take a moment, take some time, and just learn and just look at it and see, has anybody learned from the previous incidents that have occurred over time? It's always been the same thing. I don't like what he said. He's doing something that I really don't like, and it's this reason. You don't have any guidelines to stipulate on grounds of even making a firm argument. There's none. So what do you think is going to continue to occur? People doing what they want to do, and that's been part of the problem. This is the reason why when I was talking about leadership and guys got upset, you want a leader, and that's not what I was trying to say. I was just trying to say that if you have some type of guidelines that was drawn up by someone or some entities that decided to put some structure to it, that is some form of leadership.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody was trying to.
I was gonna say,
well, not you specifically, but I received messages, and some of them were a little threatening. So, but it is what it is for me.
Well, but my question about leadership is that when you try to invoke an actual structure, an organization to something, then you have to ask yourself who's included within this organization. Is this all of the Black Manosphere, or is it a certain faction of the Black Manosphere? Because when you have differing factions of the Black Manosphere, which obviously there are, people are not necessarily going to agree to the leadership, especially when they're able to have their own platforms and operate independent of said leadership. They'll continue to put out content, to continue to quote unquote dox people, continue to report their channels and things of that nature if they say things that they don't necessarily agree with. And obviously, when you look at things from that perspective, you're dealing with irrational people, because when you're having conversation, you're having, discourse, what makes that discourse productive is when you have people of differing opinions and able to, elucidate their particular perspectives, and people who are actually, witnessing, this exchange are able to formulate some of their own opinions and, follow up with comments within the comment section and things of that nature. But, you have people who are employed as moderators who are not necessarily moderating. They're just doing things basically because they're rooting for the person that they're attached to, as opposed to actually being rational. So you never really get anywhere with
Super Trish, the question is how do you see? I like the way you're saying this, but the way I'm looking at this, the question is how do you eliminate those type of problems?
You eliminate it. You eliminate it by having any sort of structure that you want to give this type of stuff. You give it to your own platform. You give it to your own platform, and you set and write the rules for your own platform. And this is just something that I'm speaking to that is just a reflection of what we've done with the Brain Trust, right? We basically established a 3.0 doctrine. We've said that the platform itself is demonetized. So there's standards that we've already set. Some people may not have liked it, but there were people that, upon the creation of this platform, we had already banned them right from the start, because we were
But again, you have the problem that occurred here has been a lot of cross-platform confusion.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you like this, though, Cass. Like, I don't give it that much, right? To consider any sort of like, what cross-platform this or that. It's like, okay, look, here's what you should know. If you're over here, shit works a certain way, right? That's just really what it all boils down to. So, if you're
But then,
rolling
then,
like
then
that, and
but then what
go ahead.
happens if I have a problem with you and I hop on my platform, right? And my faithful squadron decides to flag your channel. You see what I'm saying? See, my problem is
Kind
maybe
of
I'm
like what
speak
BMT did to Game Changer.
exactly, but
Yeah.
my question is really to us as people. I like to solve problems. I mean, I'm intrigued by this, and if I can get people support on this, that's fine. If I don't, then I'm still cool with it, one way or the other. But the thing is the question is what is us as men who want to be successful, dare I say it, in creating content and want to collaborate with other people and doing content, but at the same time want to be able to have some type of cross-platform um, uniformity, some type of uniform cross-platform
Well,
type thing going, where we
you
can
gotta do that.
eliminate the foolishness between the groups. Because I really feel like a lot of black men want to work together, but there's a problem when it comes down to the fact of the matter
Well,
of how we of our different walks of life.
Well, the fact of the matter is
What I
that
look at it.
not everybody is going to get along. Not everybody is going to be able to work together. This isn't some kumbaya shit. Okay, at the very minimum, I would just say respect other people's platforms and stuff like that. But even like I was just speaking to, there was people that we had banned right off the rip because we were just like, you know what? I ain't with like, oh yeah, it's good to have a cross section of opinions. Not for this type of venue that we run. Okay, if your opinions are informed opinions, then absolutely, we will engage. Well, most certainly. If you just got an opinion based off of some dumb idea about something, right? Then we're not going to entertain. We're not going to entertain it. And this is what I mean. It's like you have to kind of like self-standardize. There's no written rule to this. I mean, YouTube in and of itself is more or less it's an open platform. So if the platform that you're talking about leveraging is open, how are you going to add structure to it? Unless I would say the only way you can add structure is you add structure to what you create. Not the manosphere at large. We're talking about the manosphere. We're seeing what's become of it.
Well, see, that's the problem. That's the problem. Let's be real. The manosphere really isn't
Man,
dead.
is it
It's
deep?
just. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just gonna kind of get in on that same
No, go
point.
ahead. Go ahead.
And
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say a lot of times you see where there is lacking of something in, I guess, a particular area. A lot of times what happens is that I don't see that as necessarily a lacking. I see it as an opportunity for us to show and prove what we desire for things to look like. So if individuals all only want to talk about women, if they only want to bicker, if they only want to fight, I think that makes way for different content to be created in other places. And you just see wherever the audience falls, right? So kind of how the Black Brain Trust, we have discussions about articles, right? We have also a Slack channel where there's individuals studying blockchain. I think
Right.
that can even be expanded into additional things that are services to the Black community, such as having meetups, right? Having things such as webinars that show demonstrations
And Gabe,
or
that will happen, and that will happen.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
that's been long discussed.
Well, see, the thing is,
Okay.
I see
Well,
all
I
of those
guess
things as being
go
viable
ahead.
ideas. And, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well said, Gabe. Well said.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh,
No, you're good.
I
Go
think
ahead.
my thing is, dude. I'm maybe I'm a bit of maybe I might be dreaming too deeply on something. But the thing is, the way I'm looking at this, dude, is that there is wealth in collective in all of these, in all of the content that Black people we produce out here, out of everyone. I see areas where I could take a bit of content from this guy and do something with another piece from that guy and make something else out of it. I see there's so many opportunities that Black people we can actually take, what I'm saying, the manosphere, so to speak. And I'm not saying closing in, but just so to speak for this discussion, lock it in that we're able to almost run it like any other regular professional network. I mean, outside, like run it as a network within a network. You get what I'm saying? So like, let's just say maybe 10 years, 20 years from now, maybe another generation comes along and says, you know what? We got the technical skills. We've been listening to the brain trust since we were little kids, and now we have the technical skills. We're going to build our own YouTube, social media utopia. You get what I'm saying? At least there's some type of structure in place, some ideas in place already that can already be built upon for the future. You know what I'm saying? Because what I'm also looking at here is that maybe the lifespan of most content creators are out here, for the most, maybe 10 years max. Am I speaking too quickly or something? I'm done.
No, we get it.
No, but I would just say though that I think that this whole content creator, social media sphere, this whole thing, I mean, to give it 10 years, I think that's a bit premature because
No,
this
what
type
I'm
of stuff.
saying is that the average content creator out here, lifespan is no more than about 10 years.
Yeah, that's because we've only been able to really do this type of stuff, I would say, for a solid 10 years. If you really think about it, I mean, you have people doing uploads and all that type of stuff to different types of platforms, maybe back pre 2009, 2008. Like if you are maybe on MySpace, for example.
And another thing I've also seen too, that I've seen a lot of the non-black content creators get their show together, start off, dare I say it, in their mom's basement, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And next minute they're buying 2-story homes.
Yeah,
3
because
or 4 years
they
later. You see
right, because they're actually leveraging it. They're actually leveraging it for something.
And my thing about it is that there's still money on the table, but the reason why I'm saying that, dare I say it, if we start using collective ideas, maybe we could actually create some type of uniformity across platforms that we can produce and make money at the same time. Something that is, like I said before in the past, YouTube friendly, that they could appreciate and respect, but at the same time, it does answer to the needs of black men.
Well, they have those. I mean, they have these things called multi-channel networks. But the thing about because there's a whole bunch of them that I subscribe to. Now, and there's a lot of I don't know like what a lot of people's content consumption habits are, especially like on YouTube, for example, right? But I'll be real with you. I had to ask Mike what's been going on over the last couple of days on YouTube and stuff because I had no idea. I honestly, dude, I check out a whole bunch of different type of stuff on YouTube. Like I'm a huge motorsport junkie and all that, so I spend a lot of my time watching that kind of stuff, and then I'll participate in certain things that go on YouTube with regards to the brain trust or certain people's panels like Game Changer or King Sigma, like cats like them. That's pretty much that's the scope of my actual participation, and then whatever I choose to upload, which is basically just life interest type stuff. It's nothing substantial at all, So we also have to kind of look at like what people's aim is, right? And if there's alignment. So like if you're going to create that channel, the contributors to that channel should, or I'm sorry, the contributors to that network, right? So each channel should have some relation or alignment. I don't think you can have this and have us on one end of this spectrum and then somebody like a Taz, like who's supposed to be somehow relatable in terms of like content and all that. Because you have that, you
have to come into play. You see,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because you technically have that now, and because you have that, what are we talking about? Apartheid and being being incorrectly tagged as toxic masculinity when what we're really discussing here is and exercising as black men is intellectualism. Okay, you see, so these things have to be in alignment.
See, my thing is that I get what you're saying and you're right, but I'm also realizing that us as men, we have to make stuff align. And sometimes sometimes it can't be done all in one step. It has to be done in gradual steps. And I guess what I'm trying to propose to everyone is start taking the gradual steps towards it. Like, for example, let me just pull one out of the top of my head. Let's say Mike has a new product line, right? Let's say Mike now comes along, he creates a cologne, right? But at the same time, he doesn't really have the type of name or notoriety like a Kevin Samuel, so to speak, or an Angry Man to promote that content. To promote his product. What if you can combine two people together so that it can promote his product, in order for him to gain some type of footing? You see what I'm saying?
Locast, check this out. I actually attempted that back in 2017 with a few very popular YouTubers that
Right, you tried it again.
who I won't name. No. But what I'm saying is that it's not as if that hasn't been tried. But I can just tell you just from the reception, right?
Now, can I ask you a question? Now, think
Yeah.
about what went wrong, and let's see if we can correct it in the future.
Well,
It's
I'll
things
tell
like
you.
that. I guess what I'm trying to say, dude, is that as black men, we still got a lot of steps to take. And
We
one thing about us is becoming our own unifying force is that we're gonna have to start taking steps in a direction towards disciplining ourselves to get along and be able to work with one another.
look.
Well,
Here's
see,
the deal. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to say that when you ask him, what went wrong, and that black men should do self-reflection in that area of where things failed, he really, he being complex design really has nothing to really reflect upon, because the problem wasn't him.
I won't know. I'm the one who reached out.
Well, the way I see it, maybe Complex, your mistake was that you reached out to the wrong people.
Oh no, this is what. Well, no. So this is what I mean, Locast.
saying.
No, you're not. It's not. No, that's not a wrong assessment. That's actually the correct assessment. Okay. See, so what ended up happening was this whole situation is formed, and now I'm dealing with brothers who are in alignment,
Mhm.
and because of that, look, I was talking about doing like some marketing type of stuff and what have you. But I'll tell you like this. I never imagined what would have been born, what was to be born out of a lot of what's been going on this side of things with the brain trust. So I would say that my expectations, in all actuality, in collaborating with other people, when you're doing it in alignment with people who are kind of going in the same direction, there were things that I did not initially think that would be created out of this that have been. You see, so no, you're absolutely right, and this is why I'm saying that what you're talking about, you need alignment and all this type of stuff. It's not going to be this big happy space where we have all these varying opinions, and it's good to, man, fuck that shit. It is not good to entertain everyone's goddamn opinion. I'm sorry.
Well, you can't. You can't.
I tend to view things over a longer term and take more of an ecological view of the manosphere. I mean, for example, I became acquainted with Ulysses and Mike V, or Mike, by way of BGS's channel. I became affiliated with BGS's channel and Ron Will's channel, Angry Man's channel, and Nagome by way of Obsidian's blogcast. I have personally donated my own money and purchased the books and materials of Ron Wills and I also failed to mention Alan Roger Curry was also on that blog, Obsidian's blog post or blog channel. So I subscribed to and donated to and supported all of these people, and I'm here sort of by way of Obsidian, the black female fuckery guy. You know, the guy who probably engages in some stuff that might not necessarily meet the standards of the Black Brain Trust. Now, and I'm naming names here for a purpose. I hope I'm not necessarily embarrassing anyone or being a little bit too specific. But my point is that, again, I tend to view things over a long term, and I see how things evolve, and I believe we evolve. I believe the purposes of the people who enter the Black Manosphere, if you will, evolve. I believe they may start out on, for example, the black female fuckery thing. And then they encounter a BGS, and then they encounter Mike or Ulysses, and suddenly they're interested in something a little bit more complex, or maybe a little bit more worthwhile than who Brenda is fucking, so to speak. So
Yeah, I'll say that. Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
think it would be helpful if we applied a little patience, maybe, because this whole thing, I mean, this whole Black Manosphere thing is very new. It's a very new thing for Black men all over the country, and even all over the world, to be able to share their thoughts and experiences, their hopes and their dreams, their anger, their angst, etc. This is a very, very new thing, and it
But
is going to be somewhat tumultuous
well,
and
Black
troublesome.
Roo. I was gonna say,
And
Black Roo. I would just say to that, you know, I've I would say over the past week or so, I was thinking on Super Triz's hangout actually yesterday, and then there was another hangout I was on. I'm not. I want to say maybe not King's. Yeah, I think it was just Super Triz. But I ran into two young brothers. These are like in their early 20s. And when you talk about having patience and all this type of stuff, I got to tell you, the younger cats, man, look, they ain't got time for all that shit. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it.
well,
Like they
look,
what they want, and I'm just kind of relating to you. Like I think there's a different perception point for men that are of different age groups and sectors. And then there's also a lot of dudes who are dealing with a lot of different things. And there's also a lot of red pill, you know, BFF. There's an overabundance of it. See, you could stop all of that content today, and everything that's already there, that's already pre-existing, will fill all the gaps. There's nothing left really to be said with regards to that. So
no,
what
but
I'm
it's not
finding
a
is a lot
matter.
of the.
It's not
Go
just a
ahead.
matter of what is said or what is not said. It's not just the brick in building a wall. It's the mortar. It's the stuff in between. It's the time, and it's the relationships. It's the conversations where
And
where
I'm
you talk with someone, and over time your perspective as an older man begins to change. And maybe you think, maybe I need to think a little bit differently about how I can help a Super Triz, or how I can help a Ulysses or whatever as an older man, because maybe I know someone that might be helpful to you, or that I know something that might be helpful to you. I think we should be careful not to presume there being this separation, and this lack of synergy. Um, there are not that many of us. They're not that
well,
there are 5% of the adults in the United States are African American males, and we have to, I believe, we have to find some type of way to work together, and there's going to be situations and relationships that don't perfectly align, that where we may grimace when we associate with a certain person because of style, or because of a background, or prior history, but the overall benefit of that relationship surmounts maybe some of the cost of it, because it's
and I
just
would
too
say
few
that,
of us. It's just
and
too few of us.
I would say, well, there's just too few of us, but even within any given group, there's only going to be but a few that will be tasked to do certain things, and others will follow other paths and pursuits. Now, within the brain trust, you have, when Mike and I, we've tried to stress this on multiple occasions. Okay, we don't all align in terms of thought. I'm talking about within the intellectual co-op that is the brain trust. We all span the spectrum of political view. We all span the spectrum of let's just say the level of pro-blackness, right? Where we would call ourselves. Some would say that they're more pro-black than others, and these are all These are all accepted viewpoints. You see, so I think we're a proof of concept in what you're talking about. But, you know, by all projections here, it's a wrap for Black America by 2053 if we don't get our shit together. You see, so I'm not really sure how much time you think we have to get all together and get some, you basically what you have to do is you have to go about doing the work, and those who recognize their productive kin, let's just say, they'll coalesce over here. And if this isn't your cup of tea, you'll coalesce elsewhere. That's just what the reality of it is.
Well, Mike, I understand what Black Uru, I can't pronounce it, but Uru. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is off. Uru. I understand what he's definitely saying, but I think the problem that most of the time as Black men we keep forgetting. See, I don't want to go there with this, but we're always missing something that we never think about. The number one is how do we motivate people to work in our favor? That's the only thing we should be really thinking about. How do we motivate people to work in our favor? See, most of the problems we had out here was motivated by somebody by external threat, which was money that we didn't control, that we didn't provide. How do we fix things like that? That those things work now in our favor? How do we turn those things to work in our best interest? That's what we should be asking ourselves for the most part, because most of the time we'll run through all these little small ideals, and you know, because they do make sense, but the big picture is how do we motivate people to work in the best interest of its own at this point? That's all we should be doing. That's all I got to say.
I'll tell you, Lowcast, look, man, I'm not a motivator like that. This is supposed to be the manosphere, right? Right? We're supposed to be men here. So
I think you're kind of missing what I said. How do you motivate the people? See, motivation sometimes comes in the form of giving people exactly what they need.
Right, but what I'm saying is that I can only do what I do, and for those who find motivation in it, have it, right? Okay, but cool. I'm not gonna find, like, I have a life to live, man. Like I have interests that I like, that I pursue, I put a lot of time in, and then there's also projects related to the brain trust here that do take up time as well. You see, so that on its own should be a motivating factor. That a motherfucker is an example of a discussion and ideas hammered out on an open platform like this bears fruit in the form of actual projects that are now in development. You see, so you know the proof is there. I mean, what left is there to do, really? I mean, people have to get on with it. That's really what it is. You have to be self-motivated at that point.
Hey, Nagone. Is he sleeping at this time?
No, I think he might have stepped away.
No. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Nagone, did you understood what I was saying, or do I need to make myself a little bit more clear?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Well, I mean, maybe to support your point, Lowcast, you know, in any enterprise, if you look at the Manosphere, I guess, as an enterprise, you know, you have different people who have different roles. You know, maybe it's not the role of complex design to be the motivator.
I agree.
But that doesn't mean that there should not be a motivator.
But here's my thing to Ulysses. Ulysses has a fucking head. The only thing I was asking him to do is, can he come up with an idea of how to motivate people, not him to do it for someone else. But then you delegate it to someone who can motivate. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but motivation, you know, is an intangible skill.
Correct.
And it may not necessarily be the type of skill that Ulysses possess. I get the impression that that Ulysses is a very sort of tangible individual,
right?
Where things are pretty specific and are pretty. He can actually see and touch and feel what he's dealing with. You know,
motivation I'm just not going to motivate someone who's not self-motivated. That's a waste of my time and energy.
No, I understood everything you said, but I know you come up with an idea.
But the flip side of that is that, you know, there are instances in which, for whatever reason, an individual has an encounter with another individual, and it entirely changes the trajectory not only of their individual lives, but maybe the lives of many people associated with them. So I think there is a role for people who can rally other people. Again, it may not necessarily be Ulysses, and that's okay, but it should be someone. And I think that's historically those types of people have existed and
Well,
have been able to motivate people to do great and wonderful things.
I think we can draw parallels to that particular perspective to, say, for instance, the real estate market, where you have what you call distressed properties, which have a value add characteristic to them, where someone who is a visionary can see the potential in said property and invest that time and sweat equity and realize a potential profit, whereas somebody else would rather buy a property that's already showroom ready, and then they can just sell it for a marginal profit. Now you can have a quicker turnaround with a product that's closer to being finished than a product that requires a little bit more TLC. But for some people, that investment in time and sweat equity yields a greater reward, because they can look at what that product started out was, and see that contrast to what it is now. And again, that takes a certain personality to not only have the patience, but to see that vision. And so, again, that's not something that everybody can or wants to do.
So here's my question to Super Trez. See,
Yes.
can you find those people and bring them to me, or bring them back to the Brain Trust? And you see what I'm saying? In other words, no matter how you put this together, we all got a piece of the answer. All I did was just ask the question, but you all gave me bright ideas.
But
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're getting at, and I also see what Black Uru is. It kind of, your ideas are kind of synergistic off of one another, and I'm talking about Uru Strikes and Lowcast, because in order to get some of these people who have that desire to put forth that sweat equity, you should really be casting a wider net, and you do that by networking with other channels that don't necessarily are not necessarily congruent with you in every regard, but there are some parallels in the actual motivation, in that you want to see the prosperity of the Black community as a whole. So if that can be your common ground to rally around, then you can find some other potential channels that say, maybe they're not necessarily on the same wavelength as perhaps the Black Brain Trust and some of their affiliates, but we can actually see how their channel is beneficial to the masses, and we can kind of align ourselves with them to a certain degree, and maybe share some of our audiences with one another.
So what I would say is, I guess the safe. Go ahead.
Well, and I think, and maybe I have a minority opinion here, but I think most of the men, the Black men in the Manosphere, even those of us who may be troubled or may have some troubled histories or whatever, I think most of us with varying degrees are looking for a way to do better, to improve our situation. Now, maybe we're overly focused on the women. Maybe we're overly focused on the quarreling and the beefs. And, certainly the manifestations of that are quite apparent. And I think we all hope that they become less apparent. But I think beyond that, I think most of the Black men who come into the various venues of the Manosphere genuinely want to improve their situation. Now, maybe they don't necessarily, unfortunately, have the habits that easily facilitate their being able to do that. Maybe they are much more vulnerable to their habitual practices, unfortunately, and they have not necessarily had the discipline training earlier in their lives, so they're more prone to fall back into bad habits. But I think as a whole, I think most of the men who come here want to do better. And I think it would behoove all of us to try to avail the opportunities for them to do so.
I can't think of nothing else to say. Thank you.
Well said, you. Well said.
I mean, the only other thing I will say is, again, and I said it earlier, and I don't know, I can't say it enough. We're 5% of the adult population in this country. We have less than 2% of the nation's wealth. Less than 2%. We cannot afford to not try to use what we can do collectively. We just cannot afford to do it.
You don't have to tell us that. You need to tell us, you don't have to tell us that. I think those who are privy and who find themselves subject to this whole apartheid and are participating in the redefinition of what toxic masculinity is, i.e., intellectualism. I think that message needs to be reached and they're the ones who need to reach that message.
I do not.
You know what I mean?
Could not agree with you more.
Okay, I mean that's I guess if you're getting pushback from me, because it's like, okay, we're having discussions about like what it is that we can do. I mean, we're doing it. What about those who aren't doing it, but could probably stand to benefit from doing it? What do you like? You know what I mean? It's like we need to pivot it at some point. You have to recognize. I recognize what it is that I'm contributing to this whole Manosphere thing. And there's not going to be a goddamn person that's going to call it into question. Okay? You see, so that's a statement of fact. Now, for others, okay, I don't know. Because for others, they have a whole different idea of how this is supposed to work. Now, in on this platform and in this venue here, we understand that that is not the way going forward and into the future. That is simply not the way. Okay, so this whole entire platform over here is set up to serve as a venue for intellectual discourse, right? For business modeling, for stimulated debate, intense debate. That's what this is. That's what this platform is for. You know what I mean? I mean, and then there's there's only but 24 hours in a day, and there's only so much that we can do individually because we have lives that we're living. I don't know if you guys hear my daughter in the background there. You see, so what I'm saying is this: at what point does the onus then lie upon the other individuals who could be better served to be more motivated and to be more productive in a positive manner? At what point does I think that motivation stuff needs to be preached to them?
You know what's so funny, Ulysses? You just told me exactly. See, on this panel, you know what unifies everybody on this panel? Get everybody on this panel on one accord, so to speak. Everybody is aware that there's some need for urgency or activity needs to be taking place. That's really what unifies most of everybody on this panel is awareness to its situation. Now, to other people, that may not be so, but that's all I got to say.
Well, I hear the frustration in complex design because we had a conversation ad nauseum regarding the underlying concept that we repeatedly encounter throughout not just the Black Manosphere, but we're talking about the Black community in general, even to a certain extent other communities, in that people want an immediate return on investment. This is why it's so hard to reach certain people, even if you have the perfect message. You have the perfect messenger because the underlying concept is that there is an element of sacrifice initially. Like you have to say, okay, I'm doing this right now, but I'm not going to actually enjoy reap certain benefits or actually, have a tangible enjoyment immediately. It's going to be something that maybe a year from now or 2 years from now I'll experience. That's why some people can't really understand the benefit of going to school, even though they're working jobs where they would benefit from some letters behind their name. Now, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, maybe that doesn't matter. But a lot of people are not entrepreneurs, will never be entrepreneurs, and they're stagnant in their particular career fields because they refuse to make a sacrifice initially for long-term gain later on. And some people will never understand that concept, never respect that concept, and will never have the discipline nor the desire to sacrifice now for rewards later. And not only for themselves, but for other generations to come in the future. Like, some people will never understand the concept of not even ever being able to enjoy something they do now. They may do some work and not actually ever, not only will they not receive accolades for it, but they'll not actually realize the benefit of it. Somebody else will. But because they're so selfish, they will never, ever put themselves in a position where they can't get an immediate return on their investment.
During the prior Black Brain Trust stream, I said it, and I will continue to say this. I think the unspoken thing about Black people, Black men in particular, is fear of failure and fear of inadequacy. And I believe those fears, those unacknowledged, those unrecognized fears, are at the base of everything. They are the reasons why many of us don't exert ourselves, particularly academically, because we fear we're inadequate. We fear we cannot do it. We fear the embarrassment of it being known or revealed that we cannot do it. And so we then hide behind other things. Maybe we hide behind athletics. Maybe we hide behind women. Maybe we hide behind drugs. Maybe we hide behind crime. But we're all running away from that fear of inadequacy, that fear of not being able to compete, particularly when you bring into the issue not being able to compete versus white men, frankly. Not being able to compete in the sciences, not being able to compete in the IT sector, not being able to compete in the medical field, not being able to do algebra, frankly. So much of this is fear-based. And the fear goes all the way back to like second, third, or fourth grade, when you figured out you weren't able to read as well as the other folks could. So you hide it, you pretend it, you ignore, you avoid. Time goes by, you cannot compete. So you start doing other things or focusing on other things to distract from the fact that you're illiterate or functionally illiterate. So of course you can't do well in high school. Of course you can't really compete in college. Of course you can't really master IT sciences or, again, medical sciences, etc. Of course you can't do physics. If you can't do algebra, shit. So I think our unwillingness to acknowledge that fear is what holds most of us back. Now, the thing is, most of the men on this panel here have managed to surmount that fear at some point, maybe very early in our lives. Maybe it was revealed to us that we could compete intellectually, academically. So you were talking, Subatriz, about satisfaction of not being willing to wait or whatever to obtain some sort of positive feedback. Hell, there's a lot of positive feedback in getting A's on your algebra, your trigonometry exams, or getting scholarships into a university, or even before that, maybe in some private school, which some of us, I'm sure, enjoy. So, if you've done well, particularly if you've done well early in life, you have received a lot of positive feedback, which then encourages you to continue to compete. But if you've not received that, particularly early in life, then you start hiding. You start hiding from that competition. And many of us, and I've seen it, I've seen it amongst, Black male peers of mine very early in life where they start hiding and disguising the fact that they can't read, or they can't read as well as everyone else, or they can't calculate as well as most of the people. And then we get to a point where we're 30, 40 years old. We still got these weaknesses. We still got these scholastic and academic infirmities, but we've lived a life of hiding them. Hell, we, some cases, use women to hide our ignorance, which further our dependence, I guess, on Black women. Much of the Pookie and Ray Ray phenomenon is a product of them, hell, being illiterate, frankly, many of them. So I think until we address that issue of fear of inadequacy and fear of not being able to perform and fear of not addressing the fact that I've gone 30 years and not being able to read at the third grade level, what do I do now? Right? What do I do now? I'm 35, I'm 40 years old. What the fuck do I do now? First of all, I got to reveal the fact that I can't read or can't read as well as I need to be able to read, And then, so now who's going to be empathetic to that? And who am I not going to be afraid to reveal that to? So, but even yet and still, many of these brothers are very, in many other ways, very resourceful people, even though they're troubled. They're very resourceful. So I guess the question is, again, I think it's 5% of us. It's 5% of us. We got 2% of national wealth. And I just think even if you just look at it from like a military standpoint, can we afford to not solicit more of us to take on the world? Can we afford to not do that?
Well,
when you look at like actual wealth concentration, we understand that there's a select number of people who actually control majority of the wealth, and then when you look at individuals who fall into the people, I guess you'd say, make under $400,000 a year, which would be common folk who make under $400,000 a year, people who actually still have to work. When we look at our counterparts in the Black community, I guess part of the problem is that how desperately do we need people who aren't productive? Because, when we look at the actual cost benefit analysis, you look at the return on investment, ROI, of the actual recruitment of other individuals who are less productive.
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Yes, absolutely.
To explain, what do you mean by unproductive?
When I say people are unproductive or marginally productive, let me just include that as well. People who lack that necessarily productivity, like, for instance, Ulysses talked earlier about the fact that, when he was in school full time, he was also working full time, right?
That was me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Not Ulysses, Mike. I'm sorry, Mike. And then myself as well.
I did the same thing.
So then we would be an example of people who are productive, people who are able to, who actually able to discipline themselves and maximize their productivity. Some people can't walk and chew gum at the same time. What value do they bring to people who are actually trying to invoke change when you have to spend an exorbitant amount of energy merely in the recruitment process of these individuals, galvanizing them and actually getting them on one accord? You waste so much time and effort doing that for some people.
When you're building an enterprise, a productive enterprise, you start from the most productive people, and they associate with people who are maybe less productive people, to then convey the message down to maybe the people who are marginally less productive than them. And what I would say is that you fashion the enterprise in such a way in which you're not necessarily dealing with the least productive people. You're dealing with people who are maybe less productive than you are, and use them as a vehicle or a means as an intermediary to manage those who are even less productive than them.
Well, I guess my point is that you have to establish a threshold of productivity and
Well,
say,
yeah. I
okay, at
mean,
this point,
obviously, you can't have in an enterprise people who can't do anything, but you're definitely going to have in an enterprise some people who are considerably more productive than other people.
obviously, yes.
Yeah.
You know, so the question is, how do I create this enterprise in such a way in which I can yield the optimal benefit where, because you can't do everything. See, here's the thing. Ulysses mentioned it himself. You only got 24 hours in a day. You only got so many, and you don't really have that. I mean, in terms of your optimal performance level, probably at most maybe is 10 hours in a day. So no matter how spectacularly talented you may be as an individual, you are going to need some less talented, some less productive people than yourself to do some shit that would not be optimally beneficial for you yourself to do. That's why you have janitors, right? That's why you have, you know, lawn care people and whatever. You know, so you're not doing that.
But
So
see,
you can.
the issue
So
is
so
that when you're dealing with people who are less productive, marginally productive, mediocre in some regards, a lot of times there requires a different level of incentivization for them to be included in the actual workforce, because for them, again, they're at a base level of functioning in a lot of regards,
well, no,
because
you establish clear and viable goals and objectives and performance measures, and they either achieve them and you reward them and continue your relationship and employment of them, or they don't and you fire them.
well,
You
and that's the thing.
summarily, you know,
This is the thing.
and to the extent that you actually establish that in a very concrete and a very discernible way, will make the difference as to whether and then enforce failure to meet those standards in a rather expeditious way. If you do that, you'll be okay. And guess what? The extent to which you exert that plan in an expeditious way will send a very clear and present message to those who follow.
Well, the
That,
Well, look,
question
well,
I'd
you
like
know what,
to.
maybe I can't screw around with Ulysses or Super Triz the way I thought I could.
Well, Black Bro, I have a question for you because I mean, should I really be that determining factor, or is not the evolution of our global infrastructure as a whole, as it relates to fourth industrialization? I mean, because when you talk about, well, what it is that the non-productive people, what roles they're going to have to play in certain things, I got to tell you, they're largely just going to be rendered obsolete because there won't be any tasks for them. There really won't
You
be
know,
because of things
I
like, well, hold on, because of things like automation and the like. And I got to tell you, for somebody who, let's just say, owns a company, okay, if you're looking to compete from that standpoint in terms of business, you're gonna also employ and deploy, technology that's gonna basically give you a leg up and enable and that provides you the assurance that you're gonna be able to compete. So if I know that I'm company A, you got company B and company C, we all do the same thing and we're competing with each other, and I know that they're going to go and pivot towards, using some artificial intelligence to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to not do that and say, well, you know what? No, I got to get this guy who's not so productive, and I gotta give him a job. No, like the fact of the matter is that there are things that are external to us that should actually be serving as the motivating factor here for people to kind of take their own lives and their own position and their own stake in life seriously.
you know, I am I have a somewhat conflicting views of the future that you all present, the fourth industrial complex thing. I am on one side, I'm very suspicious of how you are going to have a peaceable world in which you're suddenly going to unemploy 90% of the population.
UBI.
I don't foresee that happening anytime soon without there being a very, 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 very tumultuous world.
Okay, well,
One in which
you kind of
the powers that be who will make the decision would have to think very critically about what that would mean and what that would entail.
your powers that be are the corporations of the world. They've already made the decisions. Okay, that's the reason why we discuss fourth industrialization. What is industrialization? Who does it serve? Who does it benefit? It benefits corporations, and they've already made that determination. And if you're talking about, well, the tumultuousness of things, well, I would only point to a global trade war that's going on. Everybody's throwing tariffs and sanctions at each other. We've got warships out, war games being played everywhere. We talk about it every Wednesday on geopolitics. I would say that tumultuous state is actually here. And we keep talking about it in this sort of hypothetical, well, I'm not sure if I believe it. The news reports on it every day, but I mean, feel free to believe it or not.
Well, what I was gonna say, because like I say, I have two views of this. The one view is what I stated earlier. The other view is that if what you're describing is true, that essentially the world will be surmounted by artificial intelligence and robotics and etc., then as talented as you may be, as talented as Mike B may be, as talented as I might be, or as talented as Super Triz may be, I don't see where we have a place in that world.
Well,
I don't see where we compete.
Hold on, Super Triz. Let me.
Or the robotics. We can't.
You compete.
There's no way we can. There's no way we can think better or faster than some perfected artificial intelligence.
No.
Way.
You're thinking about it from the standpoint of competing with the goddamn AI. I'm saying no. You deploy it. You develop it. Somebody has to write the code.
The code in a world of artificial intelligence and the artificial consciousness, the code will write itself.
To whose benefit
the machines
do these machines?
When the machines achieve consciousness, the machines will write its own code.
Okay, and you know what? Here's the thing about that.
Didn't Facebook release an artificial intelligence, and what they discovered was that it started creating or programming its own language?
Yeah,
and they hadn't even anticipated that was going to occur?
Yeah, so
and they
did
had
Google.
to shut it down?
Yeah, so did Google.
Okay, so now just think, now that's a snapshot of what could happen, a moment of what could happen. So just imagine a full-fledged release of artificial intelligence, not just in this country, certainly in China, certainly throughout the world. We cannot, I don't foresee a reality in which human beings stay in control, even the most talented of us, even those of us who have 200 IQs. I don't foresee the scenario in which we're able to surmount that.
Well, I spoke about this ad nauseum in the Age of Aquarius series. That was the whole purpose of the Age of Aquarius series, is to have some
I was on that with you.
thought. And exactly, complex design was there. It was basically abstract thought and conceptualization about what the impending fourth industrial age means to everybody, especially the Black community, and how we're way behind. And some of the things that is going on now is conditioning people. Like when you say, how will people respond to being out of a job? We're already being conditioned to be out of a job. Number one, they've already done experiments with universal basic income in some of the European countries. Number one. Number two, things like earning that. You have an immediate return on investment. So basically you give somebody a menial amount of money, but just on a more frequent basis. So there's an immediate gratification. If somebody like me, you could pay me once a month. I just want all my money. I don't want half of my money every other week or every week. You know, some people, they rather have half of their money every week. That's just how some people think because.
Okay, but I want to stay on the artificial intelligence thing.
Well,
right? Because my understanding is Americans consume somewhere upwards of 20 to 25% of all the consumable resources on the planet. So we're like 5% of the population, and we consume 20 to 25% of the resources.
Because we're wasteful.
If I am an artificial intelligence where I'm looking to optimize resources, to optimize circumstances and logistics and whatever, what would I conclude of Americans?
What would you do as what I would do as an artificial intelligence? I would raise the prices to the point where people begin to consume less, and there's still a return on investment, but you sell the same volume, or you sell
and who's getting that return on investment?
Excuse me?
Who's getting that return on investment?
Well, the actual return on investment is the conservation of the resources.
No, who is? What individuals or who?
The people that deploy the artificial intelligence.
So the overlords of the planet, essentially.
Well, I mean,
this is something.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say we talked about this a year and a half ago. Vladimir Putin came out last year and said whoever controls AI controls the world. So he is making major investments in Russia on their millennials and their zennials to upskill them so that they're able to compete in the artificial intelligence arena. China right now is dominant in artificial intelligence, and then comes the United States, and then comes Germany and everybody else. What I'm saying
to me, the phrase controlling artificial intelligence is inherently oxymoronic.
I knew you was going to say that.
Well, because you're looking at it from you're looking at the artificial intelligence from the Hollywood perspective. But artificial intelligence needs data sets. It needs information to be fed to it in order for it to gain its knowledge. I think what you may be referring to is deep learning. So that deep learning,
which is a thing, which is currently a thing.
But deep learning is one aspect of artificial intelligence, but you probably won't see that for another 20 to 25 years, where artificial intelligence would actually do all of this on its own.
Now, how do you propose that it'll take that long for us to get there? If we have artificial intelligence, if we suddenly have artificial consciousness and thought, why would it take 25 years for us to get to deep learning?
Because we're in the early stages of it. We're in the very early stages of artificial intelligence. I mean,
but artificial intelligence is, as you and Complex are saying, is getting ready to take over everything now.
Because you can write artificial intelligence to do certain aspects, but not all aspects, right? So
what Mike V is referring to is that as the actual deployer of the artificial intelligence and technology, you actually set parameters. Am I right, Mike V?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's not a real intelligence.
Companies deploy it. They deploy it based on use and need. Yeah. I mean, no one is just throwing artificial droids just out into the open just to live amongst humans and then compete with you for jobs with their superior artificial intelligence.
Why did Facebook have to shut down their artificial intelligence? Because it started creating its own language.
Because they were it was an experimental algorithm. I mean, you look, in order for you to know what your artificial intelligence algorithms are going to do, you have to write it, and then you have to deploy it in a controlled environment. Now,
but why didn't they know? Why didn't
what do you mean? Why didn't they know?
Because it's an intelligence. It was an intelligence, and it started thinking for itself.
Yeah. That's kind of the whole point, right?
Yeah. So how can we prevent that from happening elsewhere?
You don't.
The thing about the assumption is that they didn't know. Maybe they had forethought that this was a potential possibility and said, "Hey, let's deploy it." Because that's the basis of science.
Okay, but does it make sense?
Just for a second, as scientists, right? I don't know who else on the panel is taking science classes, but as scientists, you have you postulate You come up with an hypothesis, and you say, I postulate that given these particular variables, X, Y, and Z will occur. And I can substantiate this claim because with this control group, this won't occur. So you
but you're the CEO
to determine if your computations actually pan out. So even if you already have a forethought, you actually execute the experiment just to verify, because in a scholarly field, when you talk about contemporaries, they expect to see raw data. You can't just say something will happen. They want to see actual data that's substantial.
So are you saying that Facebook anticipated that could or would happen?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So you're the owner, or you're the CEO of Facebook, and you release this artificial intelligence, and then you discover that it's creating its own language that you don't know, and you shut it down.
It wasn't released though. That's the whole point.
Well, it was activated.
Well, it's in a self-contained. No, it's in a self-contained environment. It's not going out like the blob.
Right. It didn't go into the actual Facebook network. I understand that. And then you have to announce that you created this thing that apparently had some thought processes of its own, and so you had to shut it down.
No, that's a message. That's a message
that's
to the
PR.
other. Yeah, that's a message
PR.
to the other tech firms like IBM, Microsoft, and the rest of them that we have a nuclear weapon too, right? We have a weapon of mass destruction too. We can.
Why do you think Google did the same thing?
You have a nuclear weapon that you yourself cannot control.
No, it's not that they couldn't control it. What they're saying is that we have capabilities too. That's all they're saying. We have capabilities.
No, but they're saying that it did something.
It's the mere fact that you had the ability.
What they're saying and what you're interpreting and what the actual thing is completely radically different. That's just PR. That's all it is. It's not.
Oh, so they lied to us lay people.
Well, the government lies to you too. I mean, you're not going to stop using government.
No, I'm just trying to understand what happened, because I mean, again, as a non-IT professional, when a company like Facebook says something like that and something happened that they didn't anticipate would happen,
you can
it's
do
a concerning thing.
You can do that with a feedback loop, right? You can have it constantly loop itself or to expand on its own. There's nothing saying that they couldn't stop it. It's more of a, we did this and this was the outcome, but we shouldn't use Facebook as the example, because Facebook is always driven by a lot more machine learning than it is not. So when you refer to artificial intelligence, how it's going to affect Black people, we've talked about this several times, but we have to be the ones driving the technology and not the ones consuming the technology. That's the part of the issue that Black people have, is that they're consumer driven based demographic, and they're not the ones driving any parts of the of any of these fourth industrialized emerging tech. And what we talk about on this channel, you probably already noticed, but for the people listening, we try to drive Black people into the mindset that you have to get up on these things, and we provide the resources so that you can be up on it, and so that you can be ahead of the curve. Because right now, we've just read an article last month that Africa is going to be the bedrock of artificial intelligence, because they have such a vast population, and more than 1/3 of their population are millennials, and they're very tech savvy. So it's not a big deal for them to get up and write code and develop new forms of or new artificial intelligence platforms and machine learning and deep learning and reinforced learning and autonomous vehicles and so on and so forth. They're already on the cusp of all of this right now. So the problem is ADOS. What is ADOS going to do, right? Because now they're not competing.
They are kicking our ass.
Yeah,
Africa is far ahead. Their infrastructure is not where ours is, but their technical know-how and savvy far superior.
And you know what the problem with ADOS is that certain factions within ADOS are simply defiant. Especially people who feel as though if their livelihood or the livelihood of their children is going to be jeopardized, they feel as though if they can act as though if it's not a problem, they can stick their head in the sands like an ostrich, and that somehow it'll just pass over them or it just won't affect them at all. But that's simply not the case. This is something that you have to actually not only just address, you have to embrace this technology and find ways to use it. Now, Black, you drew a parallel to nuclear, fission or fusion, and referred to as uncontrolled nature, and drew a parallel to artificial intelligence. But in actuality, that is the basis of that nuclear fission and fusion, is that there is a chain reaction that has a certain degree of uncontrollability. Same thing with the actual, what you call deep learning. There are certain variables that are outside of your control. How that particular program, you write the particular code, but there may be varying rates at which it assimilates information based on the actual stimuli it receives from its environment, based on the parameters that you set. So there's a certain level of uncontrollability, but that's how that particular technology works. That's how nuclear fusion and fission and fusion works. That's how artificial intelligence works.
Well, but you're kind of making the point, or supporting the point I made earlier, and that is, I think the future of deep learning and artificial intelligence, I don't see how it is favorable necessarily to any of us, even the most capable of us. Because I mean, we just, as human beings, we just have physiological limitations that the machines will not have.
Well,
even the most talented of us.
Well, again, I spoke about this on the Age of Aquarius series, and I also brought in the fact of, you're going to have gene editing. So people are going to feel compelled to actually gene edit their children so that their children will be relevant in the future. It's going to get to that point, and personally, I'm going to be honest. I accept technology. I know it's not going anywhere, but things will be a lot simpler without technology. A lot of the problems that we have within society is based on technology and its existence. Things were a lot simpler at one time. Now we have things that are made easier in our life because of technology, but technology itself creates a host of other problems. For instance, the sedentary lifestyle that a lot of people are falling victim to, because they're so reliant on technology. They don't engage in the actual physical exertion necessary to maintain their health and well-being. So there's a lot of problems with technology, but because we're in an arms race, so to speak, we have no choice.
Now, I have two things I want to say here. One thing I did want to say here is that, when it comes to, how society is going to be with this stuff. I mean, so to take a page out of Black Panther, we saw a highly advanced Black society that was tech based. We saw that you could have a highly technological advanced. I mean, even though it's an imagination, but we're dealing in the imagination at this point because we're talking about a future, right? See, so who's to say that actually couldn't happen in clusters, right? In predominantly Black communities as it stands right now. Now, Mike has spoke to this at length. Maybe one of the ways that you start to move in this direction is you start putting things like maker spaces and fab labs in Black communities, which starts to spur the development of this stuff. Like I said, either you're going to deploy it or somebody else is going to deploy it. I mean, that's really what the bottom line is here. Go ahead, Mark.
No, we just covered an article last night with Jaylen Brown at MIT.
Yeah, there you go.
Very same thing. He sounds like a Black Brain Trust member or subscriber. Everything that he said in that article, we've been banging the horn on that, or banging the drum on that, for over a year. So we're not that far off in what we're saying. And I think part of this issue with Black Manosphere is that there's a reluctance to actually have that conversation on a deeper level, not on a high level like some of these other guys. They just talk about sex dolls and stuff, but we talk about the actual nitty gritty of it, which you really need to get into all of this stuff, and how fourth industrialized opportunities are going to be gig economy based. So now, before, 25, 30 years ago, people would have laughed if you would have been on a moped, but now you're talking micro transportation beyond 2020, there's a viable market. Bird scooters is valuated at $2 billion. They're only 18 months old. These are opportunities that most ADOS people are just turning their nose up to, and it's crazy that they're willing to flag other people's channels but not actually have this sort of conversation.
Well, Mike V, if they have the conversation, wouldn't they in essence have to admit some of their own inadequacies and irrelevancies? Because in light of this actual data and revelations based on the acceptance of artificial technology, acceptance of gene editing, a lot of these people that would have, number one, the intellectual capacity needed to have some of these conversations. I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to be an arrogant asshole, but let's be honest. There's certain intellectual capacity necessary for some of the abstract thought to conceptualize some of the potential futures based on artificial technology, number one. And then number two, these people, they're nowhere near a factor now, before or at the dawn of the technology, let alone where we're in the midst of the technology. They're marginally performing individuals. A lot of them are mediocre in various aspects of their life. Now you're telling them to have a conversation about technology, which will render their jobs obsolete if they even have jobs. And they have no plans to make themselves a factor. They're not, in light of this data, it's like, what are you doing now that you know that this technology is coming? What are you doing now to prepare yourself and your lineage to not be phased out? What are you doing now? But they're not. See, when you have these conversations, then you have to address that elephant in the room with your audience. Then your audience is going to look at you sideways because you don't have a plan of action. And if you do have a plan of action, you're not even doing it yourself.
All right.
Show the work. They can't show the work.
In my savior days, a little less than a decade or so ago, several times I ran for political office. And one of the offices that I ran for was to become a member of the school board. And the purpose of my running for office, I have a financial background, CPA, that type of thing, was to try to become or to create greater financial stewardship of the school district. But my other purpose was to be sort of a kind of a hellraiser, to essentially kind of sound the alarm, the Chinese are coming, and to try to save the boys, essentially, because as we know, Black boys are particularly struggling. I would ask, if not urge, all of you all who have some intention to, I failed to get on the board, but I am considering attempting to run again. I would plead with you all, and as well as the other men who may be listening to this stream, to run for a position on your local school board. There's a lot of money that go through these school districts, millions of dollars that go to the school district, contracting opportunities that could be steered towards Black-owned, particularly Black male-owned businesses. Certainly, hiring opportunities that you would have an influence on in terms of hiring teachers. But maybe more important than anything, just having a say in the curriculum and the programming that would maybe help to prepare young Black people, and particularly young Black boys, to be able to pursue the professions and the business careers that you all are currently involved in. It's interesting, like I said, I ran for a couple of offices. I lost all the 3 attempts that I ran for office. but it was a thrilling experience. You got to meet a lot of different people, a lot of different Black people, parents, all this type of stuff. People invited you into their homes, and you got a perspective of. And the interesting part about that experience is, ironically, I came away from that experience with much more appreciation and respect for politicians. And the reason why I came away with more respect from the politicians is I came to the realization that for all their faults, and some of them, many of them maybe are crooks or whatever, they, unlike most of the rest of us, were willing to actually take responsibility for things in their community, in their county, in their state, in their city, in their school district, whatever. And I think, and by the way, the school board that I ran for, that lost, unfortunately, all Black females. The superintendent of the school district, Black female. 3 of the 4 principals of the schools in that district, Black females. So I think that's, so if we're talking about trying to help the future, and I guess if we're concerned that the robots and the AI are going to take over, maybe none of this stuff even matters. I don't know. But if we do think humanity has a chance in the not so short term, maybe that's a way in which some of us could take a role in helping, some of, again, I'm really focused on the Black boys.
Well, I think Mike B,
to have a chance.
I think Mike had that conversation yesterday, and he spoke of an individual. I forget the name of the basketball player's name.
Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
He's doing exactly that. But see, here's
Jaylen
the
Brown.
thing. Here's what Jaylen Brown is doing. He's throwing out the life preserver with the rope. He's not jumping in that water. I'm gonna tell you why. I don't know if anybody has ever seen anybody drown. Now, I was in the military for about 9 years. I went in when I was 17 as well, like C Boogie. And one of the things I had to do when I got out of medic school was because I went to medic school before I went to nursing school. So at the jump in the water, I had to swim, tread water for 20 minutes. I had to swim with handcuffs on it. Then I had to swim with a dummy, a 150-pound dummy, and then I had to, take off my pants and make a flotation device out of them in the water. And I had learned how to swim, but I wasn't a strong swimmer. I'm gonna be honest. And that was the hardest thing I ever done in my life. To this day, the hardest thing I ever done in my life. Now, there are people that damn near drown. And what I saw was the drill instructors would jump in the water because a lot of people couldn't really swim. They'd jump in, they had to try to save these people, and they would almost drown trying to save them. They would literally get pulled under the water, and it's an ordeal trying to save somebody that doesn't know how to swim, that's drowning. So, and a lot of times, and I think Dr. Phoenix touched on it in the live chat, you have to triage. You have to triage. You have to design. You have to set some parameters and say, okay, these are the people we're going to help first. These are the people we're going to help second. These are the people that are expectant. And in healthcare, expectant means that we know that their wounds are mortal or beyond our current level of capabilities at this time, and any efforts to save them is an exercise in futility. And we're at risk of thinning our ranks in an attempt to save somebody else that's too far gone or beyond our current capabilities. So I think that.
But the school board that I ran for, it was, and I intentionally did this, was to address the issue that you appear to allude to, and that it was at the elementary school level. It wasn't at the high school level. I particularly avoided the high school level because I know it's kind of too late at that point. So I understand, the whole issue of triage and save those you can, and so I was trying to save the 6, 7, 8-year-old boys. At least that was my fantasy. when I attempted to do that.
We have a. I wanted to. There's a question that we have. I wanted to. Cause this is to the panel, so I wanted to throw it out there and let you guys give your take on it. This is from Rose Golden. She says, "Question," or I'm assuming she. A question to the panel: is it feasible to learn tech, AI, cybersecurity, etc., to apply and build the Black community directly, or learn tech to get good jobs, start companies, and send the money from afar? I'll answer after you guys.
My position is that you learn these skills to get into the industry, not to actually get a job. We usually don't use the term jobs when it comes to Black men. We always use a term called opportunities, because a job is usually temporary. Careers are long term. So you develop these skills so that you can be at the forefront of these very industries, especially with cybersecurity and coding. So writing code, whether you're talking about machine learning, front end coding, back full stack engineering, very many of these various aspects is going to be about not just getting a job working at Google or something like that, but being able to be self-sustaining as well for yourself. Because if you decide to move somewhere, you can take your skills with you. For some of these other people who do get these jobs, at Best Buy and whatnot, those skills are not really transferable outside of customer service. And I don't think we need any more customer service because that stuff has been automated. So my position here is that you get these skills to put food on the table, but you got to also be the driver of the technology. You have some ideas. You need to be a part of a think tank or some form of support group. Up here in Boston, we have several support groups for Black men and Black women who have ideas that they don't want to share with other groups of people. So you can actually get help from within the group itself. We usually meet once a month. We do the same thing here on the Black Brain Trust. There's some stuff that goes on offline that we don't discuss online for that very reason. So if you want to be a part of something like that, we can help you out in that area as well.
Well, I just want to piggyback off of Mike V and say that, if you're willing to put forth the sweat equity, once you learn that particular skill, you might be better served at venturing off on your own because there's opportunities to capitalize on value add propositions as opposed to contributing to an infrastructure that's already built. Whether you can build your own infrastructure from the ground up, there's more work to be done, but there's greater rewards to be realized in the long term. And especially considering the fact that you can call it your own and you can use that whatever you build to benefit who you want to benefit from it. For those that are, considering, relocating to Africa. I'm not saying relocating to Africa, for any other reason other than there's a value add potential there. And there's an opportunity to get a substantial return on your investment because you're implementing services and providing things that are not already there, as opposed to augmenting something that already exists, like you will be doing here in America. So I think that's a possibility because you can actually serve a community of people who look like you, or if you can do it within your own community here in the United States, maybe find an area where there's an actual void, and you can fill that void with your particular skill set and what you bring to the table.
I would say both, and the reason why I would say both is because shit. I'm sorry, bro. I didn't even know you've been quiet, bro. Go ahead, Triple X. I'll go after you.
No, I was gonna come in behind you. Go ahead, man.
Okay, all right. I would say both. Because what all of this points to is an even more connected global infrastructure. Okay, 5G is going to make a financial transaction via the blockchain and cryptocurrency at some point here in the not too distant future. I mean, hell, we can say that in some regards. Okay, we do have that now. However, as far as commonplace application, let's look 5 to 7 years into the future. Okay, this is what will be commonplace, much like these hangouts. These hangouts weren't commonplace 5 years ago. So you have to really sort of follow how the ascendant curve of technological rollout and deployment. And, if we could leverage it in such a way where you're piping it into resource opportunities outside of your community, and you bring those resources back in. You have to kind of look at this. We have to start thinking, as I always say, think globally, act locally. You see, so you can enrich where you're at. Like, dude, I'm born and raised in Southern California. Don't ask me to leave here. I'm not going to leave Southern California. I will go and get places in other places. I'll have a home there. I'll go and visit. Great. But I'm always going to be here because I love it here. Okay.
Well,
so don't ask me to leave. So what would be something to where I could give myself, wait. Well, man, everybody's got like what they got to deal with, right? A tornado, a blizzard, a hurricane, or an earthquake, I guess, right? So we all have to kind of make do with what we got. But what I am saying here is that a good strategy is to line up business, start thinking globally. Okay, so what we do is we do business here and elsewhere. We have to start thinking this is what enables us to think or to actually see a future for ourselves that's on an ascendant curve past 2053. This is what we have to do in order to kind of change the trajectory, because right now that trend line is pointing downward. Shout out to Dollar Will. It's trending downward, right? And it's not trending upward. So you have to really think 180 degrees from where you're at right now. And by doing that, you'll see the trend line ascend. You see, so accessing capital from afar and bringing it locally, that can go a long way in staving off gentrification. It can go a long way in buying off your politicians. I keep saying this, let's stop playing games. We gotta start buying off politicians. All these systems we talk about in all these positions, school boards and city council positions, and Senate, Congress, judge, police chief, all that.
Facts.
You goddamn right. You buy them all off.
Facts.
And you make them do what your agenda calls for. Every other group that has an interest does this. It's called a lobby. Okay, we have to get serious about our interests. We have to determine what our interests are. Are our interests going to be in tech and I'm sorry?
No, actually, the most efficient way to buy off a politician is to groom that politician earlier. That way you gain an alliance with him or her going in. So what I would say is you find a particularly charismatic person and particularly talented person who's motivated to be a politician, and you back them early. I saw it happen here in Chicago with Obama, where certain people kind of got behind him. See, because it's difficult. I mean, unless you got a lot of money, unless you're willing to spend a lot of money, or it can be difficult to be able to invest enough money in a politician so that your particular point of focus will surmount that of people who may have considerably more resources.
I think Triple X was behind Complex, so if we can get Triple X.
Pardon me.
Yeah, I just all right. Just let me finish my thought, and then I'll pass it off. Just to speak to that, I'm a little more insidious with it. So I would say you find the candidate who's there, who closely aligns with your interests. You contribute to their campaign and call in the favor. But what you also do is you contribute to their political rival. And then I would say your backup is to then either groom one of their aides, or you find someone. What I'm saying is we have to strategize just like every other lobby group does. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. Go ahead, Triple X.
I agree.
Oh, okay. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I would say yeah, I agree with a lot of what Complex and Super Trism just said. Yeah, definitely both. I would say, and to kind of piggyback a little bit what Mike B said earlier. I mean, it's definitely more about opportunities and careers, and not so much about jobs. Jobs are very limited, and they come and go, and they change like the weather. You know, layoffs happen, all type of things happen. Office politics, you know, you want to get in the game, you know, learn that particular field is cybersecurity, networking, etc. App development, you want to get in the game, learn it, you know, take those skills, expand your career, choose your career options, and try to work for good companies, learn as much as you can. And if you can step out and do your own thing and get your own business started in that particular field, whether it's tech support, app development, etc., that's a good idea. You know, make sure you know you open up a pipeline back to the Black community to be able to work with some of the youth, and you know, maybe eventually if you get your own company, hiring some Black men. But I won't ramble on. Black Hero wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not a subject matter expert in that field, so I'll be very brief. I would just say what I would wish that those of us who are expert in the IT field, particularly those of us who are computer design, design programmers or whatever, I wish many more Black men in particular would go into the schools and to champion and encourage coding amongst younger Black people, particularly younger Black boys. I think that could have a seismic effect on our standing in the field of computer technology and development and design over time. Of course, again, if we're concerned about the robots taking over in a couple of years ago, I guess in a year or so, I guess it doesn't really matter. But assuming that does not happen, that's definitely something that I wish those of us who had those particular skills would do.
All right, there's another question in the chat, and I think that would be the last question for tonight. I need to really shut this down. This one came from Kig Sigma. It says, why is the panel underestimating how the rising bachelorhood impacts the investment Black men will make in Black children's lives? I don't see it that way. In my experience, I'm a part of NISB, so I don't really see. I mean, there's a lot of Black men in there who don't have kids, man, and they're making plenty of investments in there. So I don't know if I can agree with that per se. But I think your average Black man walking down the street of adult age, he may negate some of the kids, but if you're part of an organization, you kind of cannot do that. And if you're part of any sort of dominant enterprise, that will be difficult as well, because they do a lot of outreach at least 2 or 3 times a year. So, especially in those areas of children and homelessness and things like that, it's difficult for me to agree with that statement.
What was the question, Mike?
The question was, why is the panel underestimating how the rising bachelorhood impacts the investment Black men will make in Black children's lives?
Actually, I think, some questions are probably going to be more better answered by women, because they largely have a lot to do with, one, the amount of children that are being born, and 2, the men who they're going to be birthing these children with. So that question is asked. Okay. Okay. the way that question is being asked, it's being asked with the assumption that I have an inherent role, right, to put another man's child above basically my own agenda, or my agenda has to incorporate another man's child. Now, speaking as a father, what I'll tell you is this: there will never be a time when another man will have to take care of my child. You see, so I have to prioritize. I have to prioritize my contributions. See, my child comes first, right? My child comes first, and even within that, I have to come first, because in order for my child to come first, I have to come first. I have to do things for me. And see, I'm speaking from the position of a man who's taken responsibility for said child. Now, that should be the modus operandi for every man who's created a child. Now, I get that, you know, there's a whole other social paradigm at play here with regards to women and how it plays into the kind of problems that we have now. But you have to understand that men play a part in this by the mere fact that it takes two. So to kind of circle all the way back to the beginning of this hangout, when we were discussing these things, I asked Mike, I said, well, you know, why are standards that don't align with men and that don't benefit men being accepted in men's spaces? You know, like you know, yeah, go ahead.
You know, I guess the question, you know, I think King Sigma's question, there's a very sobering aspect to his question, you know, and it kind of references to whether or not these bachelors, frankly, themselves will have children. You know, I have a friend who is in a neighboring village, is a trustee of the village. He's very well known, and he even become the mayor or whatever of the village because he's very popular and has done a lot in his capacity as a trustee. And it all started, his involvement or his civic involvement started with the fact that one day he was with his daughter. They were riding a tandem bike, and his daughter was nearly bitten by a stray pit bull. And of course, he confronted the owner of the pit bull, and he complained to the village and became involved in other civic related or government related issues in the village, and eventually got to the point in which he reached his popularity, ran for office, that type of thing. You know, people do things because they have a vested interest, and one of the very perhaps the biggest reason why people get involved in civic matters and school matters and such and such is because they envision the effect of such will have on their children. So if the bachelors are not going to have children or not going to be invested in that way, to that depth, I guess I can imagine they may not necessarily foresee them having a cause to be as invested in the future of young people as those of us who, you know, I myself have raised two daughters into adulthood, and I attended all the meetings and the parent teacher things and all that type of stuff because, you know, I was concerned about the welfare of my own children, and then indirectly became concerned about the welfare of other people's children in the community, that type of thing. So yeah, presumably father, bachelor, then maybe you don't necessarily have the motivation to do much or anything at all for other people. I hope that was not too long.
I think it's a question that, no, I just think that's a question that actually would be better answered by, you know, the women who have them. Because there's a guy somewhere who needs to take responsibility for what he creates. We all need to take responsibility for what we create.
Indeed.
Facts.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do. Of course, from that does or should evolve a community in which people might be indirectly concerned about other people's children, as they may be indirectly concerned about your children, because they know your child. They see she's a lovely, talented young girl. They know you. They see you are a very productive and a very earnest and honest citizen of the community. So they have a vested interest in ensuring the well-being of your daughter. And you might feel similarly about the children of your neighbor. And that's how a
Oh yeah,
community
absolutely.
is wrought,
And
But again, if
no mistake.
you don't have children, these may not necessarily be, if you're bachelor, non-father bachelor, yeah, they may not be important to you.
But make no mistake, even doing something like this here, with the brain trust. Okay, we what we could be talking about, what we could be putting into the minds of young black men and young black brothers, what we could be doing could be far more detrimental, right? But it's not. You see, so I would even posit to say that what it is that we do on a nightly basis on this channel even serves as a contribution. I mean, unless we're going to parse what these things are, just look, my whole intention of, in terms of my purpose of life is to leave this place in a better state than what it was when I got here. So I can only do but so much as one person. Take the positive, man, from what it is that I'm able to do. I ain't perfect, so I got my quirks about me and all that. But I'm just saying, we all have to collectively be responsible people, and I think that there will then be more examples for people to take good things, good qualities, to take away from the average person that they come in contact with on a daily basis. As it stands right now, it's the complete opposite. The average person that a young black boy comes into contact with probably hates his guts for a myriad of reasons. And that's never going to be a state where that boy will grow up to be productive in the future. It's not going to happen. You need a wholesale shift. Largely, black people got to get off the bullshit. I'm gonna stop ranting though, because let me stop.
Well, let's finish up with Super Triz and then we'll shut it down.
Well, I am one of those bachelors. I don't have any children, never been married, and I think I kind of alluded to my perspective earlier when I said that I'm more of the life preserver with a rope type. I'm not jumping in to save you. So if you're willing to at least swim to the life preserver, I have no problem pulling you in. But I mean, I have people in my own family, people who are very close in my family, who are not productive and refuse to be productive. And I've done things for people. I've given cars. I've given away probably about 3 cars. I've given away 3 vehicles. Vehicles cash. It's already paid for. You ain't got to pay anything. The vehicle's in good condition. I've given 3 vehicles away myself. Giving money to people. I've done so much trying to help people get on their feet, get to where they need to be in life, and I'm at the point now where I'm done because the stuff that I've given away, I had to work hard for myself. You know, it's not like it was just something that, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had to work for everything I got. So it comes a point in time where I look at the return on the investment and say, okay, this effort that I'm putting in, is it even worth it, or is it just a waste? The last vehicle I gave away, the individual just wasted it, just squandered it, and so, I'm at the point now where I'm willing to put forth effort to help people, but I have to be met halfway. I need somebody to show me that they're at least willing to put forth the work in themselves, put forth the sweat equity, and then I'll give them the resources they need to be successful. And that's where I stand out on that. And I think that even that is more than I am obligated to do. Because again, I don't have any children. Now, when I do have children of my own, then there is an obligation there to do certain things. But if I'm helping somebody else, no matter how small that help is, it's more than what I was obligated to do in the first place.
All right. Please hit the like button if you have not already done so. Share the video if possible. And we'll be back tomorrow for geopolitics.
Hey, Tris, stay on, man. I got to ask you something.
All right, peace. All right, cool. I got you.
With that being said, thank you all. Have a good night.